You're winning. 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 Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Epic Understanding. I am delighted to be with you today. We are going to celebrate women today, but not in the way, or we're just talking about being a mom, or we're talking about being nurturers, even though those are magnificent qualities. What I want to talk about today is how to navigate successfully being a woman in almost every area of your life. Now, are we going to be able to cover that all today? Absolutely not. But we will give it a good start. Now, one of our guests today is one of my favorite people to interview. She is a Forbes coach, a expert in strategic planning, and a absolutely an amazing human. Welcome to the stage, Miss Elisa Cornell Standorf. Hello.
Hello to you. Thank you, Coach Love, for having me again. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
It is, and it's Carlone. Carlone. I didn't get that out quite
No
right.
worries. No
But
worries at all.
you are fresh off a amazing strategic planning trip. How did that go?
Went really well. I had the pleasure of working with an organization just outside of Washington, D.C. that's been in business for 32 years and does incredible interior design and architectural design for workspaces. And they have a health division, but they wanted to re-envision their health division and strengthen their work with not only hospitals, clinics, centers for well-being. They're looking at going into veterinary clinics as well. And so I facilitated their health division in re-envisioning itself and establishing their strategies and their action plans. It's fun
That's real.
for me.
You know what? It does sound fun. It sounds very detail oriented, and it sounds very, very soft skill focused.
Excellent way of putting it. That's exactly what it is. And usually when I tell people strategic planning, to my own ears, it sounds so analytical and dry. It's like, oh, we're going to plan strategies. But I just have fun. I get to guide people through a process that at times you feel like there's just this mass of information, understanding, skill sets, and so forth. And then it gets really tight and messy when they're forced into putting it into words and understanding. And then when they go through the other end of that, come through the eye of that needle, then there's this opening of clarity and they just get excited. And I get to watch and guide that whole process. And the most important thing for me in the end is that they have established for themselves a clear roadmap that really allows them to be not only successful in their results, but successful in how they're achieving them. They feel good about themselves, one another, their communication is improved, their objectives are clear, their processes are mapped out. Yeah, it's a fun experience.
At the end of my introduction for you, I said that you are an amazing human. And I think you would have to be in order to effectively do your job.
Well, I'm not sure what I can say to that. What I can say definitely is I do know that I've been blessed with a very expansive internal landscape.
Mm-hmm.
So that I was actually speaking with my daughter this morning about it, that I'm able to, hold space for, either hundreds of people that are going through crisis in within an organization, or facilitate strategic planning very targeted for an organization or a division. And then at the same time, turn around in the lunch line and speak with a woman who has just lost her husband and
Mhm.
support her for that snippet of time we had together in just being present to her grief and her loss, and the tenderness and the beauty of the relationship that they had. So I feel very blessed that I have all those facets, and I think it's merely because I've lived a long time, and
Mhm.
and I've done a lot. I've traveled extensively, worked extensively, and done a lot of my own personal work. Yeah.
That is very important. The reason why I highlight that is because I feel like that is the thing that we are missing in the big picture. When I look at um, Democrat versus Republican, when I look at our geopolitics, when I take a huge worldview in anything, you we have to dehumanize um, someone or an entity if we're going to treat them in a subpar way. Now, there's been a long process of doing that, and because of that, that's where the harshness has come from.
Mhm.
That's really, yeah. Go ahead, jump in.
I was going to say, I think that the harshness comes in because we've dehumanized ourselves. We've come so far away from being in relationship with ourselves, and
Hmm.
that means all of ourselves. And there's people talk about doing shadow work or the dark side. I don't believe that's there now. Having said that, people are like, how
Hmm.
can you say that when you look at the world? People will do horrendous, horrific things to one another, to the extent of which they have distanced themselves from the knowing and experience of their own innate goodness.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
the farther away that they get from that experience of themselves, the easier it is to be unkind, cruel, dismissive of not only yourselves, but to other people. When you meet people, or small children, or people that have done their work, who have walked through tragedy and have stayed close to themselves, they have only been able to stay close to themselves by grinding through all of that pain.
Hmm. Hmm.
In that process, recognizing that there's still so much goodness and beauty, both within themselves and within the world.
Hmm.
And when we live in that space, when we have that type of being, and allow that to shine into the world, then I'm going to be different with other
Hmm.
people, including people that are being unkind. I'm not going to meet it with aggression. There may be understanding. There will definitely be the intention to turn it around, but I'm not going to match it with aggression or the desire to suppress them.
So I want to highlight this. Being aggressive is neither male or female, or I should, feminine or masculine. It is a functionality of the measure of your humanity. Would you say so?
I think that's a lovely and succinct way of putting it. Yes, and I have to. It's interesting. I recently a what do you call it? A rescue puppy came into my life.
Mhm.
I wasn't planning on a dog, and he probably wasn't planning on me. Anyway, here we are together, and he's just delightful. A friend of mine said, "You got the dog that you deserve." What's been so wonderful is I've taken him to a few dog parks, and I'm not going to be doing that anymore for a specific reason.
Oh, wow.
It's it's really how should I say, a slice of humanity. You can see in the animals the way the humans are that live with them. And what I've found in these dog parks is there's a lot of really sweet dogs, but there are some that come there and they are just angry.
Oh, wow.
Whatever they're home, whatever they're experiencing, boy, they let that out with such an aggression. And I find it interesting then to see how other dogs respond to that, and especially our dog. So he goes in there. He's so delightful. Like, in his world, the whole world wants to play. Like, why would you not want to play? And when a dog approaches him with such aggression and such anger, and it's not just dogs will fight and they'll do their hierarchy thing, but you can sense when they're just some mean animals because they've been treated meanly. What he
Okay.
does, he'll try and play, he'll approach him, and if he recognizes that they're aggressing, He'll roll on his back and submit, and then he rolls right on through and keeps running on to play with someone else.
Oh,
The
wow.
fight back. And I fight, and when I first started watching, I thought, now that's really interesting. So I see that as Zen. I mean, that's total Aikido. It's taking the force that's coming at you aggressively and turning it, using it to propel yourself forward or to propel your opponent forward or the person that's attacking.
Okay.
So I feel that in him, his world is delightful. And so if somebody comes with that kind of aggression, it just doesn't
Mhm.
fit in with you. And I feel it's the same thing with humans. When we have done our work, when we have found that place within ourselves that's peaceful, and we recognize it doesn't mean it's always peaceful, but we know that place. We know how to get there. We know what it looks like. We know how it feels. When we have that experience of our own peace and well-being, then we can call that forth. And when somebody is aggressive, we can come from that place in response to them. And just one short more thing I'll say to that. Some people say, oh, well, then, you're a pushover. People will just roll right over you like a steamroller. That's the last
Mhm.
thing anybody would say about me. Usually they're like, call Lisa, she'll take care of this. But not ever. Just from a place of understanding and saying, you were talking about politics earlier. Oh my gosh, I don't own a television. I don't watch television. I'm not interested in what they're doing out there. But when I hear these stories, what I'd love to do is slow the whole thing down. And
Okay.
whomever's talking, I don't care if you're right, left, middle, up, down, sideways, doesn't matter to me. I'd ask the question of, what do you mean by that?
Okay.
Blah, 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 blah. But what exactly do you mean by that? And if they're able to actually verbalize what they really mean without the rhetoric, then I would ask the question, and how do you feel about that? Like, what's your
Mhm.
relationship with what just came out of your mouth? Or what's your relationship with the stance that you're actually backing?
Okay.
And that's what's depersonalized and dehumanized things, is we're not in relationship with our own selves or our own lives. Anyway, now I've gone down a whole different track.
Well, no, I like that because there is so much rhetoric in politics. There is so much rhetoric, like even in arguments, okay? It is the implied accusation that I um, have a lot of trouble dealing with. When someone is saying something about you, but they're saying it in such a way that um, you would have to either be a little aggressive or you would have to be the person asserting that there is an issue.
Hmm.
So there's two of you in a conversation, right? And someone says something like, well, when people do X, I just don't appreciate it. So and you have just done X, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And it wasn't negative. You weren't trying to be funny. It was a genuine expression, but for some reason they disapprove of it. And it might be something that you have an absolute right to do. But
Hmm.
instead of being brave and saying, hey, I really didn't like that or whatever, you find this person being passive aggressive with you.
Hmm.
So it's an implied in insult. How do you how do you be effective in that sense?
Well, it's interesting. The same thing as what I just said, and something comes to mind. It was more personal, but somebody came to my home recently and looked at me when they came in. They said, "You look pretty." I was like, I said, "I'm not sure. Is that a compliment? Is that an accusation? Or do you have an issue?" Right? And they couldn't really even explain it. And so what came out later in the conversation is that this person feels very inferior to people who can dress well or who have appreciation of color or style or whatever it is. So it had nothing to do with me.
Hmm.
And maybe I didn't even look pretty, but through their lens, there was somebody out there in the world that was reflecting back to them they weren't stylish.
So you are so getting at one of the themes for today, and it is insecurity. Now, Lisa, I've been around you long enough to know that it's not my job to manage other people's insecurities.
Mhm.
However, what I'm looking for is how do you the effective way to navigate that? Because as a woman, and sometimes people reflect their expectations on you, right? People, if you are competent and confident, you rub up against other people's insecurities.
Mhm. Well,
And
they
that,
rub off you.
oh, okay, they rub against you, and there becomes an attack for no reason. You're like, wait, it's,
Right.
you're like, wait, hold on, hold
I was
on.
quite a young woman when I recognized, Erica, that I can walk into a room, not know anybody, not say a word, and maybe half the room will have an issue with me,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and they don't even know me. And I think that's also a big reason why I've gone into the work that I've done, is because I was so uncomfortable with the interface between me and the world. It
mm-hmm,
didn't make sense to me because on my internal world, I'm like my dog, right? I'm
uh-huh,
like ready to play and I'm out there in the world. And it's like, come on, let's go. And then these responses come that I'm like, wait, what? What? Can you explain that? And most of the time they can't, because they're
mm-hmm,
not aware of their own experience, right?
mm-hmm.
So what I've come to understand is that when somebody says something to you, they're telling you something about themselves.
Yeah.
So this person saying to me that they thought I looked pretty, but with an impact, an inferred emotion that I didn't understand, had nothing to do with me. Now, what I find that how I found that to be incredibly useful is then I can be curious, because if it isn't about me, and it's not like, oh, it's not about you. I mean, if it's literally not about me, if I'm talking to somebody, like for example, at the beginning of this conversation, you said I'm amazing. I'm actually not amazing, but you think I am.
I do.
Right. So that tells me something about you, about how you see the world, about the qualities you appreciate, about the types of beings that you celebrate. You've told me something about yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Okay.
So, and it's the same thing if somebody comes and says, you're too intense or you're too direct or you're too whatever. They're saying to me, I don't feel comfortable when people are direct. I'm scared of intensity. I'm
Okay.
guessing. I don't know exactly what they're saying to me, but I know that it has everything to do with them and not with me.
Right. Okay.
And so if we follow that a little bit further, where it gets a bit interesting is,
Mm-hmm.
well, what about if they're telling you that you did a really good job or they really care about you? Does that also have nothing to do with you? Quite honestly, yes, it does. It has nothing to do with you.
Mm-hmm.
However, when you are in relationship with yourself in such a way that you can resonate with what they're sharing, then you can engage back with them. So if there's love, if there's appreciation, and you resonate with that, you can reflect that back and say, and I feel that way about you as well. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here today, right? If I didn't find you amazing as well. And when there are attacks that come, if I don't resonate with that, I don't have to engage with it. Or I can come from that place like my puppy. I can just roll my back and say, wow, it sounded like that was an insult, but you know what? I'm going to take it as a total compliment. Come on in, right? I can be with that however I wish to be.
So break that down for me in a work scenario, because or in a scenario where there are boundaries that need to be respected. There is a task that needs to be done, and there is real consequences to the dynamics that exist. And I'm thinking about work scenario and I'm thinking about family scenarios. But for you, I'm going to talk about work because I think that is where I've seen you thrive. It's it's very obvious that you know how to, you know, help us move forward in that.
I'll give you there's one example, and I use it often because it was such an impactful experience.
Mm-hmm.
I was partnering with a gentleman who is a white male and
Mm-hmm.
quite experienced, and we were going to do a project together. And we were speaking about it over Zoom. And as we were talking, um, I'm, I'm not quite sure how it came to pass, but I said, we're both equal in bringing things to the table. And he
Mhm.
looked at me and said, we're not equal. I said, I'm sorry. Excuse me. What did you? And I literally thought I had misheard.
Mhm. Mhm.
Say, no, we're not equal at all. And I said, what do you mean by that? Like, I was so stumped. And he
Mhm.
said, oh, well, I'm here and you're here. And first of all, I was so shocked at the directness of it, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And coming back to what I've just said is that this is telling me something about his worldview.
Mhm.
So I said, I don't understand. Can you explain that to me, please? And he said, well, I've been working on this continent for so many decades, and I have so many connections, and I have, business acquaintances, and I can, do all these, make all these, do all this networking for us. He said, you can't bring that. You've been overseas most of your life.
Hmm.
So we're not equal. So I thought, so I'm just going to stop it there for a minute, just take that apart, because that tells me he sees the world through very didactic lenses that I bring X, and if you can't bring X, you're less than. Like it's a one for one, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Yes, you don't bring that. Okay. The second thing is that it told me that his worldview was so narrowed to only his experience and his networking, right?
Mhm.
He wasn't taking anything else into account, not only of mine, but also of his.
Right. Okay.
So I'm listening to this. It's like, okay, so now I have information.
Mhm.
And yet, as you were saying, setting those boundaries, if I'm going to work with this individual, I need to be able to be clear that this is a level playing ground in my world.
Mhm.
And if I'm working with somebody who doesn't see it that way, I won't be working with them. I just won't. I don't care the amount of money. I don't care the job. I just won't do it. That's outside of my value system. But I didn't know that yet. I was still in an
Okay.
inquiry phase, totally stunned.
Mhm.
So I said to him, I said, wow, it's so interesting that that's how you see it. And then I will say I got a little snarky, but I did it in a nice way. I said, I'm bilingual. I would never think that I were better than you because I speak two languages. I've lived and worked in 38 countries. I would never presume to think that I'm better than you because you've lived and worked in one, right?
Mhm.
I have
Mhm.
my certificate as a mediator. I have my certificate as a nonviolent communication trainer. I have my degree in, I just went through all my certifications. It would never occur to me to say I'm better than you because of all that.
Mhm.
So what you're saying where you're here and I'm here, I said, that's not even in my paradigm. We are completely equal in value and we bring different things to the table. And at the end of that conversation, he said, oh, I totally agree with that. It's like, great. So we work together then. So, sorry, go ahead.
So I want to. You got a little bit snarky. Is that a good tool?
Well,
Is
no,
he
it's not. And
effective?
the only reason I will say I got snarky is because I was raised by a white man who felt like he was better than everybody else. And the reason that I was working with this man is that I wouldn't have even entertained the conversation with him if I didn't know he had heart. So that snarkiness, that's my history. That's my old ego saying, how dare you? You don't need that. And one of your questions was also, why is being passive aggressive in the workplace toxic for women?
Uh huh.
First of all, you don't need it.
Mhm.
If you are relying on passive aggressiveness or on aggressiveness at all,
Mhm.
it's because you believe you're in a weaker power position.
Okay.
If you know your value, you have no need to argue about it at all because you
Mhm.
know your value, right? But if you're not sure of your value or you doubt whether you're good enough or you think other people are better than you, then you feel you need to fight for that and you have to fight yourself out of the box. So, sorry, go ahead,
I'm
please.
just gonna say, I'm just want to be. I do not believe that most people, not just women, but most people know their value all the time in every scenario. I just don't think it because you know I'm in this group. It's called Women of Blessing. It is a wonderful place for me to be. And the sisterhood I experience there is like no other. Okay. It feels like just be bathing in love. Okay. That's what it feels like hanging out there. And everything is received so well, and people are so kind, just like I want it to be, right? So you just have so much confidence there. And then we meet on Saturdays, and by the end of that, you go to the grocery store, you interact with other people, and you can have the exact same words, and you leak. People leak. You're in a different scenario, so now people take what was the same phrase that was met with such kindness and appreciation, and people feel so differently about it. So you don't feel as confident as you would in a different scenario. Because how do they say always know your audience? Always, always know your audience, because the receiver of that communication feels completely different about it. If you start talking about God in another scenario, you are met with what people experienced in their last church.
So I understand what I'm hearing you say is that you need to consider the circumstances in which you are before you share certain aspects of yourself, so that you're not going to either be under attack or you're not going to lose that sense of safety and well-being.
Well, yes, we need to consider, but I guess what I'm saying, we're just never going to always feel confident in all scenarios. We're never going to feel confident, whole, or valued, because the currency of um, effective and acceptable humanity is different in almost every scenario.
Mhm.
One of the reasons why I love to people watch, one of the reasons why I love to do this show is because it is so amazing to me of what people find valuable in human exchange, you know. Um, and I'll, in a rap scenario, like the music rap, boasting about who you are and what you have and and being the greatest rapper alive, even though you're not, it's absolutely no validity. Those things are value. Just puffing up, talking about things you don't have. It's a complete fantasy, but it's all about the rhythm of it all, right?
Mhm.
That could not. And then on another scenario, and I'm going to take a spiritual scenario, being um, humble, being humble, bragging about your weakness, and talking about how someone else helped you with this, or how God helped you with your weakness, and how you used to struggle with X, but now you've taken a road to help you with X. That is value, and that is currency. And so there's this big accordion of what is valued.
Mhm. Absolutely. In the world at large.
Hmm.
Your premise, if I come back, if we step back to something you said a minute ago, that if you talk about God in this scenario, or if you're in that scenario, people are going to respond differently. And therefore, you can lose, you said people leak. And by the end of the week, after you've been away from your group, you're feeling less confident.
Hmm.
Your premise is that your confidence is either generated, dependent on, or buoyed by the group.
Well, so I don't want to say that everything is that the value is completely extrinsic. That, because I know that people have an intrinsic value, and
Right.
it truly comes within. But what I am saying is, those balloons, a helium balloon. If you're inside, if you're in a colder climate, um, the helium is one way, but if you take it outside to the hot car, it all of a sudden starts to deflate. The
Mhm.
helium hasn't changed, but the pressure has.
Right. The external the external representation of the helium may have changed, but the helium hasn't changed. But what
Mhm.
I'm hearing you say, with all due respect, is you're focusing on the presentation. So
Mhm.
here's what I mean. Wayne Dyer did one of one of his best, I don't want to say skits, but one of his best lectures
Okay.
was talking about going to the dentist, and he was talking about this very thing. And he said, we have come to believe, and not only believe, it's for us a given, because you yourself have said you don't think somebody can always know their value. I have a different opinion on that. And
Okay.
this, I think, this expresses it well. He said, if you're going to the dentist and you're sitting in the chair and the machines are going and you feel like your jaw's vibrating and all of these things are, happening at the same time and your fists are clenching and so forth. He said people get so tense in that situation because there's all of this input, and we're talking about our mouth, which is
Mm-hmm.
internal. He said he loves going to the dentist. And the reason is he has trained himself that going to the dentist is an erotic experience.
Oh my goodness.
He goes, and when he starts to hear that sound, he imagines it's the whisper of his lover's voice. And
Okay.
as they start to touch his mouth, he imagines she's kissing him. And he goes through this whole thing, like in detail, of every drill, and then they come with the water to flush and all these things. And he said he just has the most exquisite experience at the dentist, and he's so disappointed when they're finished. So now that's possible. It really is. And so when I look, if I'm looking at my dog who gets attacked and he's like, you mean you didn't want to play? Oh, okay. And going elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
When I know my worth, when I know my value, and I don't mean externally, like somebody, I've done A, B, C, and I, have 1, 2, 3 degrees or certificates or whatever. So what? I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about what I said to you, that I have this vast internal landscape. I was gifted
Mm-hmm.
that. And I've worked and traveled and all these other things, but my internal world is amazing. Like
Okay.
I love being who I am. Does that make me better than anybody else? Absolutely not. Ask my children. Oh my goodness gracious. Do I have things that I want to change? Yes. But I love being me. And when you speak about weaknesses, I don't see them as weaknesses. I see that we have different facets. And the clearer that I am on my value, my goodness, and the love that I am in the world, then those things, when I'm being angry or petty or something comes up and I'm jealous or something like that, all I need to do is recognize, huh, why did I just leave this place of knowing myself as love?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's something that triggered me out of it, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
belief. And
Okay.
whatever I can find that belief, I eradicate the belief, then I no longer am resentful. I'm no longer angry. It's not because I'm flawed as a human
Mm-hmm.
and I have a fault that needs to be expunged. It's merely that I have forgotten that spirit of life of the creator lives in, as, and through me. And if I'm not acting that way, it's because I've forgotten. Why have I forgotten? Oh, because I thought that they could harm me, because I thought that I could lose that, because I thought that I might be injured in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought that actually that I am love. Oh, okay. And then I can more easily let go of that, rather than, oh boy, there you go again. There you are being this. You got to get on that. You need help with that. And then it turns into this huge thing, rather than just, oh wow, I totally forgot that. I don't even need to do that.
So just to tweak my scenario a bit, those thoughts are really the different environment. Those thoughts are the hot environment for the helium. And so what I'm saying is what triggers those thoughts is that strange environment. So it's not the environment itself, but the environment triggers something inside of you, which is these discomfort, these bad thoughts, these insecurities that pop up. And
Hmm.
so now your helium is changed. Now you're feeling a little more deflated. Now, do we have the ability to self-correct? I 100% believe, because that's what your words to me do. Um, our self-talk, our self-talk, our a self-correction actually reinflate our balloon, so to speak.
Yeah, I hear what you. I just have a different perspective. I don't experience it that way. And I did experience it that way for most of my young adulthood. I was brought up Catholic,
Okay.
and Catholics go to confession, and so I every week had to share what I had done wrong, what my sin was, what I was, need to do penance for. And
Mhm.
that created for me a worldview, a paradigm, not a worldview, a paradigm in
Mhm.
which I was always going to be somehow in penance for something.
Mhm. Mhm.
The way that I experience myself in the world now is that we are made in the likeness of. We can't not
Okay.
have the spirit. We can't not. We can't. It's who
Mhm.
we are. If I act in a way that isn't expressing myself as love, it's because I
Okay.
forgot. It's not because I'm
Yes.
form. It's just simply because I forgot. I don't have to self correct at all. There's nothing to correct.
Remembering.
Worldview. It's a remembering, and that's all that's needed. And for me, that it might sound like splitting hairs, but
Mhm.
for myself, so I grew up. My father was violent. He came back from Vietnam. They didn't have a word for PTSD, so I grew up in a very punitive home, and I never knew what I did wrong. And often, I probably hadn't done anything wrong. He was probably triggered from whatever, right?
Okay.
And so, when you're talking about being out in the world and people respond to you in a certain way, that triggers our old experiences, our beliefs we're not good enough, we've done something wrong, we're not loved, we'll never get it right. All of those things go on within ourselves, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But our essence, that healing, that doesn't change. Can't.
Mhm.
But and the way that I how do I say, the way that I frame the human ego, it's nothing more than the mortal mind. It's just this machine that creates thoughts. It's not something we have to get rid of. It's not something that's underground and in the dark lurking. It's a tool that we have. And when we can remember, when we can get behind the tool and understand we're the being, we're the spirit using the tool, that's a very different thing than the tool, the ego, is something I have to combat and get rid of and push down and make sure it doesn't get in. Now I'm in a combative relationship with myself
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
tool that's part of me, rather than my being is love. The gifts that I've been given and great to share with other people are always there. And depending on how clear and healthy my mind is, my thoughts are, I
Mhm.
either able to live from that place most of the time, if not all the time, or I get pulled away from it because this tool is still forgetting. Anyway,
So,
I don't know if that makes
so
sense.
it's definitely I can connect with the idea that it is a remembering. I can connect with that um, idea. I want to move on to something else, but it's
Please.
kind of in the same vein of this idea. What's the phrase? Um, that a woman's value uh, is based off of her beauty, her ability to procreate, and marriage,
Mm,
and that seems to be at the foundation at so many experiences for women. Not that doing those things aren't loving or good or amazing, but if you're not married, if you're not meeting the beauty standard of what the world, feels accepting of at the particular moment, um, or if you don't have children, oh my God, you're not good enough. And when one of the most popular movies, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's a Wonderful Life. Are you familiar with that movie?
oh, mhm,
And
yes.
even as a little girl, I was looking at this scene and I always thought, huh? Well, what's wrong? And it was when the angel is talking about what happened to Mary.
Mhm,
And he was like, "You don't want to know. You don't want to know." And he's like, "Tell me, tell me." And he's saying, "It's so awful." And the angel
mm,
says, "She's a librarian. She's an old maid." And I remember thinking as a kid, well, what's wrong with being
so, yeah.
a librarian?
Yeah.
you know? But
Yeah.
it was the most awful thing that could ever happen to a woman. She had a career and didn't have kids and never got married.
Hmm.
Dun, 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 dun.
You're funny.
Right. But that sentiment is still in society today. And, I listen to different programs and it's an implied, well, you're going to be alone.
I would, let me ask this question. Who is doing the valuing?
I definitely think this sentiment comes from society. I definitely hear it in conversation, both with women and with men about women. Um,
Hmm.
you know, motherhood is definitely a club, and I do hear women beat up other women with um, the idea of being a mother, and if you're not, somehow you're less than. Um,
Hmm.
I hear married people beat up single people. You know,
Hmm.
if you're not somehow married, you are, you know, less than. And God forbid if you have like both of those particular things.
Right.
Dun,
Right.
dun, 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 you are a pariah.
So here is the vicious circle. Everything that you have named that's doing the valuing is outside of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Unless you unhook from what you have been told, taught, read, raised in that is valuable,
Mm-hmm.
and you go internal and you establish what your values are,
Mm-hmm.
and if you are living and being in alignment with your own values,
Mm-hmm.
you are always going to feel you're not good enough. You
Mm-hmm.
will never get away from it, which is what you said at the beginning. You're never going to feel 100%
Mm-hmm.
unless and until your sole measure of your worth is your internal value system. That's it. And if you think about the people on this planet who have made the biggest impacts for the multitudes,
Mm-hmm.
they have been maligned, they have been assassinated. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, pick someone, whether it's Mandela, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Martin Luther, each one of those people, and the women also. Mother Teresa, they thought she was an absolute nut, right? Going into the slums and helping people. All of the people that have really made huge impacts on our world in a positive way have been driven by an internal understanding of their value and let that be their guide. Now,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't mean that you say, I don't care what you think about me. I'm going to do what I want and I'm going to steamroll right over you. The only way that's going to happen is if your paradigm is that if you trust your internal values, that there's such ugliness in there that it's going to steamroll over people. But if your worldview, if your paradigm is that there's actually our core is goodness because we were created by the life force that has the trees growing up and the rain coming down and the world spinning around, if that's the creative life force that created us, how can I not be goodness? And when I get in touch with that and I identify the values that I hold, boy, you can say about me what you want to say about me. If I come from when I'm coming from a place of love and from a support, I'm sorry you can't see that. And then we
Mm-hmm.
don't align. Then I'm not going to work with you, or you're not going to be my partner, or I'm not going to have you to dinner, or whatever it is. And that's okay. And I don't have to make you wrong for that. That's what we have going on out in the world.
Mm-hmm.
People are yelling at each other, making each other wrong because they don't have that place within themselves. So they need to make sure nobody else has a differing opinion so they can feel safe. When you know your value system and you live from that place, you can listen to other people's values, you can listen to their different worldviews, and you can find a way to work together forward, even when there are discrepancies. That is possible. As a mediator, I can tell you it's not only possible, it happens.
Happens every day, right?
It does. When you hold that paradigm, when you live from that place. It's
Mm.
my experience anyway. And that's the only one I can speak from.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we talked about being passive aggressive in the workplace and how that's absolutely necessary. I am going to save the idea of gratitude for a little bit later. I want you to give us some tips, please, on
We
how.
can I jump back for just a second before we get
Yes,
to the tips? Because
yes.
there's a story I do want to tell, and it just happened this past week. And when I heard, I was like, wow. So I do want to address that passive aggressiveness in the
Okay.
workplace and the
Mm-hmm.
toxicity. A woman spoke. Her name is Libby Rabbit, and she runs the largest female-owned construction company in the United States of America. She's
Okay.
amazing,
Okay.
and she was a school teacher. I mean, she came up the hard way, and she was saying that on her team, and she has men and women on her team. We're talking about construction, like building
Right.
construction, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Usually in the world. And she said when her female supervisors are in the field and they either use language or energy or demands that their male counterparts do, she inevitably gets complaints from the client the woman is working with, the supervisor is working with. This woman, and with all the accusations of women that can be that way, she did this and she did that, whereby the male supervisors will do the exact same language, exact
Mm-hmm.
same, right?
Okay.
Exact same energy, and they're invited out for a beer afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying there's not a difference in the workplace. There absolutely is. What I am saying is, though, for us to try and counter that with passive aggressiveness, that's where we fall down, because we are going to be on the back foot if we try and do that. We can't win that system. We can't. We don't have to either. This is the beautiful part. Just be direct. I'm curious. Why are you saying that to me? You wouldn't say it to my partner. Why didn't you deliver on time? You had, like, coming to the facts and being direct as a female, man,
Mm-hmm.
that is a magic sauce. You can go so far with that. It's phenomenal. That's why you don't need a passive aggressiveness, is to really just to bear down to the facts and be direct without emotion. It is a phenomenal tool. Anyway, I just
Mm-hmm.
wanted to put that in, because I don't want women walking away, any of us walking away thinking, oh, well, I can't be, aggressive or pets. Like, you don't need to be. You shouldn't even want to be. Be yourself, know your value, speak to the facts and speak to them directly. And when you can do that without judgment, you're home free. Really, you can have an incredible impact that way.
And I think that's really one of the greatest tricks of the trade, period. No matter if you're in a workplace or you're in a personal scenario. And sometimes I want to be honest, asking a question and being direct
Mm-hmm.
will get you labeled as being aggressive. Even if
Absolutely.
you even if you say it nicely, respectfully, and
Absolutely.
politely.
Absolutely.
Um,
But then again, you come back to what's important to you. Sometimes it is important how you're perceived. When you keep coming with kindness, I'm asking this question because it's important to me that you succeed. I want us both to succeed. I don't understand this. Can you please explain, why is it this way? And you're
mhm,
persistent with that kind of kindness. That's
mhm,
why I've shared this with you before. The genius of non-judgment, the training that I offer, is so
mhm.
useful, because when you can come without the judgment and that energy of isn't there, people can hear your questions better or hear your information more clearly.
Mhm. And this is going to lead us right into helping women speak and explain their position, because I do notice that in an effort to navigate all of these preconceived notions that are placed upon women, just as you talked about in your story,
Yeah.
that women often have a time embracing the environment that they're in,
Yeah.
okay, and
Yep.
being effective at the same time.
It's funny you say that. I always have to grin when men will ask, have you ever been exposed to gender discrimination? It's like, you ask any woman that, they're going to be like, you're kidding, right? Like,
Mhm.
ever been exposed to? It's like it's our daily water that we swim in. Yes, it is difficult. And I think I had interrupted you when you said what tips you'd like. So please tell me what you would like me to speak to. I'd be glad to.
So, let's see, say if a woman is in a situation with other women, okay,
Hmm.
it is important for me to acknowledge that there are other women in the
Hmm.
scenario, but she's not in the clique.
Hmm.
Okay, she's not in the clique, so to speak, and she's being heavily scrutinized
Hmm.
for every action uh, that she's making. So there's a lot of, I'm going to call them sniper-like comments coming
Yeah.
towards her.
Hmm.
How would she? How do you? Um, what tools does she have available other than just being direct? Because even her directness is, being thought of as or I'll just say it's being frustrated, it's being criticized. What
Hmm.
is one of the best ways to get your point across?
Well, what comes to mind, Erica, is speak the obvious. And so, and that may again sound direct. So here's the thing, and I'll share this honestly. Women can be much more vicious than men
Mhm.
in ostracizing, in bullying, and it's in a more subtle way. It's behind your back. It's very difficult. So I do not want to minimize at all how we demean one another and
Mhm.
actually put ourselves down by doing so.
Mhm.
Um, So in situations like that, well, there's two tools, if you will. One is speaking the obvious, and the
Mhm.
other one is the four steps of what I call impactful communication. Having worked with Carl Rogers' daughter for years, but it's also known as nonviolent communication,
Mm.
saying what the fact is, and as a general tip, just start identifying facts in every conversation, every movie you watch, every book you read. What is the fact? And a fact is something that is measurable by objective terms: temperature, length, lumens. The book is on the table or it's on the floor, like things that are really concrete and can be measured by external measures. Those are
Mhm.
facts. Start identifying them, because what people mostly argue about and make accusations about have zero to do with actual facts. And when you are able to bring it to the facts, it infuriates a lot of people. But when you just stay totally calm and
Mhm.
say, I'm just curious why you're upset, saying that the book is on the floor when I'm looking at it, it's on the table. I want to understand. The book is on the table. Why are we arguing? Right? And
Mhm.
then you start to understand why people are arguing about that. So these four steps is starting with the fact, what is happening, how I feel about it. I'm frustrated that the book is on the table and not on the floor.
Mhm.
The reason for that, because I've asked you 5 times just this morning to move the books off the table onto the floor so we can pack the table.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm asking you, when can you get that done? Right?
Mhm.
So those are the four steps of impactful communication, nonviolent communication, that are really useful if you're in a situation that has to do with action and you're asking for something, or even if you're not asking for something, you just want to share. The other thing that I use, and I find it useful because it helps me feel safe and good in situations like that where I can't understand backdoor stuff. Like, I think I'm missing that gene. So, no, really. Like, people are like, don't you get what's going on here? I'm like, no, what? It's just
Okay. Okay.
is that I just speak what's going on. It's like I feel right now like I feel my heart racing, and I feel confused because I'm hearing you say something to me. I don't think I did that. So, and I sense you may be angry at me. This doesn't feel comfortable to me.
Mhm. Mhm.
Done. Done. Because trying to counter a point, they're going to go on their hind legs. So here's what happens when aggressions come, or attacks or misunderstandings, whatever it is, a perceived threat. What
Okay.
happens is we have our base brain. It's the oldest part of our nervous system. It's the one
Right.
that makes us close our eyes and sneeze and all these other things. It's very hard to control the base brain if you can at all. I don't think it's even possible. But it
Mhm.
is responsible for us freezing, fighting, or fleeing in danger situations. An attack, an emotional bullying, those harassing situations, those are perceived by us as a threat. What happens then physiologically, and we are
Mhm.
physiological beings, is we go to our back brain and we want to either fight. Some people do that.
Mhm.
Other people will retreat and say nothing,
Mhm.
or they'll just leave. And other people just, they don't know what to do. It's just
Mhm.
like the total blank, the system just locks into freeze. So,
Mhm.
the way to get yourself and others out of that is to very calmly speak what's happening and letting people feel safe. I
Mhm.
hear what you're saying. I hear you saying this, and I hear you saying that. Do I understand you to say this? So, mirroring is a useful tool. If you don't want to bring yourself into it, first mirror what you're hearing. What happens
Mm.
is their base brain senses, oh, I'm being heard here. This is
Okay.
safe. This is safer than I thought it was. It also helps you calm your nervous system because you're not defending anymore. You're now busy with somebody else's situation. So
Mhm.
your nervous system's like, oh, okay, we're back in control, which means we're back in our frontal lobe, which is the latest development of our brain evolution. Now
Okay.
we can actually think. And I'm sure you've experienced this. When people get upset, people say, there's no reasoning with you. No,
Mhm.
because they're in their base brain.
Mhm.
They're not even
Mhm.
accessing cognitive abilities. So when you notice that either yourself is deregulated or you see somebody else is deregulated, the best thing you can do is repeat what you hear them saying, stating the facts in a calm way so that everybody's nervous systems can calm. And I'm sure you know people who come in and just do that and it's like everybody goes, right? It just,
Right.
and from that place, then my suggestion usually is let's just take a break and come back to this in about 3 minutes. Then you come back and now everybody's back in their frontal lobe and you can start with the facts again.
And so I love your technique because it will help where people are getting really emotional. I want to bring Sandra J. Golden in with us. She is a nurse, she is an author, and she's also a social worker.
Oh, wow.
Besides that, she is a really cool grandmommy.
Not a social worker,
Oh,
Oh, you're
so,
just a
well,
nurse.
just a nurse. You know what? I need to correct that in saying because saying that you went into facilities and you examine the records to make sure of the make sure their standards
Right.
correct, and so you helped people navigate their health journeys, and that's why I always get confused with that. But you do have that quality of nurturing us through those types of things. So there we go. I apologize,
That's
but
okay.
you certainly are uh, a very well thought out woman, and you know how to help us connect these emotional dots.
Mhm.
So I know you were listening back stage for a bit. Welcome,
Yes.
welcome. Tell me, what are your thoughts um, about what's being said?
I totally agree. It's one of the techniques to a certain extent that I teach mothers to communicate effectively with their daughters. Because a lot of times when we are having those conversations with our children, um, it gets heated. And one of the things is we really don't listen, or we're listening to make a response instead of getting or gauging the full understanding what is trying to be communicated to us. So sometimes you have to step back, or sometimes the conversation gets so heated, like she says, you have to say, okay, we really do need to discuss this. I want to understand your point of view just as I want you or need you to understand mine. So there's a lot that has been said here. Let's take a break. You think about what I've said. I'm going to think about what you said. Let's, just think about it. Let's step back and then maybe come back in an hour or so uh, and discuss it, because that gives each party that opportunity to really think about what each party said, what you said yourself, and what the other party said, as well as the comments that were made.
Mhm.
And now, once, like she says, you calm yourself down and you really look at everything, then you can come back to the table more focused, more clear minded, and in a calmer state.
I
Beautiful.
I like what you're saying about a calmer state. This is very good advice for us to end our first hour on. I am going to give Lisa the floor for a moment, just in case you have any parting words. Lisa, what would you like to leave the audience with?
I guess I'd like everyone to know that, especially in the woman's world, that we have been told that we're number two and we have to fight to be number one. And I would like to just have people really recognize there is no number two and no number one in neither amongst humans nor amongst any beings. And so to know your worth as a human, as a being, as a light, without comparison to anything. I just invite you to do that and celebrate yourself, because you certainly are worth that.
I couldn't agree more, Lisa. It has been a pleasure having you. I look forward to when you come back again. I do think that maybe um, we could maybe interview you next time on your training. I think that would be really good. What do you think?
Great. You mean strategic planning training?
Yes, 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 yes.
Absolutely. You bet. I'd love to do that, Coach Love.
Uh, awesome. Well, thank you for stopping by. I look forward to you coming back again.
Thank you for having me. Be well. Nice
Be
meeting
well.
Sandra.
Awesome. Family, we will be back in just a moment. We're taking a short 5-minute break, but I assure you, when we come back, we will be discussing something that you want to talk about. We're going to figure out some good practices on navigating being a mother and a grandmother in today's time. As you know, currently mothers are raising their children. They are acting as full time babysitters with their children, and even some grandmothers are estranged from their grandchildren. So we're going to break down some of those dynamics with Sandra. So it's worth coming back. But until then, let's take a quick break, and I'll see you in a minute.
Sometimes we get hurt because we're placing the wrong people in the right rooms of our heart. And I'll just echo what I stated before. You can be a whole package. I mean, a whole one. But if you end up at the wrong address, the receiver will mishandle you. Why? Because you're at the wrong place. Like, misplaced people will really have us out here second guessing ourselves. Misplaced people will really have us out here thinking that we're asking for too much. But truth is, they can't offer much. Could the problem be that you're seeking validation from somebody who's not even valid for your destiny? So now I have heartache because I keep misplacing people. Pain prevention is tied to people being properly placed. So I believe we have partners, parasites, projects, and pawns. Your projects, these are people you just help. Like, we are not looking to build a bond. I'm looking where to place bricks. We are building something. I am in your life simply to help, not to date you. You don't date projects. This is just an assignment, not an alignment. And my sisters have a higher probability of misplacing people when it comes to this category because you have been wired to help. That pain hits different when you're helping somebody that's not going to be yours. This is why knowing your value is so important before they arrive. Because if you helping them gives you significance, you risk confusing your contribution as confirmation. This is God's will. This was meant to be, not necessarily. This is somebody that you just help. When you understand and just help. When you understand and know your value, you know there is a level of help that you only will get when you call me wife and I call you husband. Period. There are levels to help, and that level of help, that only comes when I'm your wife. We're building something, not bonding something. Number 2, parasites. Your parasitic people, they live off of you. Their survival is off of draining you. I want you to actually think of a parasite. Think of a leech. They attach themselves to host. You give me life. This is a reason why a lot of exes keep coming back, because you helped me be sustained. I lived off of you. And when you get the understanding and wisdom on when somebody is parasitic and you establish boundaries or even separate yourself from a relationship, don't feel bad. Never feel bad for severing a relationship when it was God who handed you the scissors. And you don't have to get them back. Resist vengeance. Because if we be honest, if you were to give them a taste of their medicine, oh, they would swear that you poisoned them. This type of relationship, they will be careless while you're stressed out.
Welcome back, and thank you for sticking around with us. We just finished with Lisa Standoff, and she was wonderful. She's an excellent strategic planner, and she's a magnificent coach as well. Now I have coming up with us Sandra. Hello, Sandra. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
Awesome. She's an author, she's a nurse, and one thing she's extremely adept at is managing her relationships with women and within her own family, her relationship as a mother and a grandmother. It's not been through a lack of, I'm going to say, family challenges. You have just had a really good way of viewing things fairly, tapping into the leadership within your femininity, and then using that to be a very good foundation for your family as a whole.
Absolutely. It's not an easy task, but it's one that can be learned.
So you're specifically here to tell us about being a grandmother, but I don't want to shy away from some of the other expanded roles that you've been able to pick up, because you were a mama sister.
Yes, I was. After my mother died, all of us was pretty young. My baby sister was 18 years old, had just graduated high school. Really, she wasn't 18, she was 17
Mm-hmm.
when my mom died.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess about a month and a half, 2 months later, she turned 18. And so I have always been that force in her and my other baby sister. She's 2 years older than the baby.
Okay.
And so they've always looked to me for guidance, even when I was a teenager and I was still living at home. We still did things together. I always looked out for them, and I always wanted to give them the experiences that I felt I didn't have. And I didn't
Mm.
want them to go through some of the things that I had gone through early on in my life, being sexually assaulted by a piano teacher, going through dating a violence with a boyfriend. So for me, it was, I felt I needed to be a present in their life. I needed to be able to help my dad guide them, but from a female perspective.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we have family, people that we love who struggle, and that person may have a child. And that happened in your family where you ended up being a mother to your nephew.
Correct, correct. My oldest sister, actually, her son that I raised is probably about 18 months older than my oldest daughter.
Okay.
So she had him, and we were all staying with my parents initially.
Mhm.
She got married a year before I did, and her fiance had joined the military. Uh, was very good with to my nephew and with
Mhm.
him,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
he was stationed in Alaska.
I see.
And the plan initially was for them to get to Alaska, get situated and everything. And then she would either send for him or come back and get him. But it never happened. There
Mhm.
was never any discussion of it.
Okay.
Uh, and my dad, being much older than my mom and getting ready to retire, felt as though he needed to make the necessary decision to look out for my nephew. He wanted to
Mhm.
make sure that he had the means to still provide for him, but also that as he grew older, if something were to happen to him, he would still have something. So he sought out an attorney. He drew up paperwork to legally adopt my nephew, uh, called my sister, talked to her about it, sent her the paperwork, told her at any time if she wanted him back, they could reverse the decision. He had already, talked to the attorney about what would need to transpire and everything, but that he felt that he needed to do what was best for his grandson. And he told her, I want you to think about it. If you have any questions, I want you to please, give me a call and we'll discuss it, or I'll have the attorney call and answer your questions. My dad received that back in 2 days, signed. And from that point on, him and my mother, until my mother died, were his parents, the only parents that he knew. I helped while I was still in Mobile going to school to, take care of him. After I had my daughter, it was like everybody thought I had two kids and that they were twins because, like I said, they were like 18 months apart. What I did for mine, I did for him rather. Um, and then when my dad died, he was around, I want to say like 13 or 14. And my initial thoughts were, and at this time she had divorced and moved back to where we originally were from. And my first thought was, she's not going to do anything for him. I'm going to get him. And my husband says he's old enough to make the decision. He knows who his biological mother is, and he may want to stay with her. Let him make the decision. And as hard as that was for me, because I had always been a constant in his life, it was like, I don't think she's going to be able to do it. And he says, allow him to make the decision. And it was nothing but God, because when we got there, after my dad died, he told me and my husband he wanted to talk with us. And the first thing he said was, I want to come and live with you guys in Atlanta. So I
Mhm.
never had to broach that conversation with my sister or with him because it was a decision that he made. And she never said that he couldn't. She never said that she was his mom and that he had to stay with her. So it was just an easy transition for him because he had spent many summers and school holidays with us here in Atlanta.
Mhm. And so in that story, you are now a mother to your sister's child. And actually, um, it's like you're reparenting someone because he already was being raised by your parents. So a little bit that bond was broken between your sister and he already.
Yes, it had already been broken, and like I said, he know who she is. He acknowledges her
Mm-hmm.
as mother. I don't have a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he still looks at me as an aunt.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we never changed the dynamics as far of I'm now your sister, or my parents never said I'm not your grandparents, I'm your parents now. We never changed those dynamics. So everybody is still the same. To him, I'm his aunt, but he'll tell everybody in a heartbeat, Sandra and Kenneth raised me.
Mhm.
They are the ones who took care of me and provided for me. Because when he met his wife and everything, she didn't even realize initially that my oldest sister was his mom. She always thought that I was his mom because of how he would talk about me and my husband. And she never broached the story. And it just came up because she happened to work with my two baby sisters. They all worked at the same place. And she made a comment and they said, "Oh, that's not his biological mom. This person is his biological mom." And she was like, "Okay." And so they had to explain the story to her. So, he's always acknowledged the people who really provided for him and everything.
So there are a lot of emotional sharks in this water. For me, this is shark infested water. So obviously some things were done right because I'm not seeing a lot of blood in the water. Okay? So a lot of things were done right, but I'm curious, what does he call you?
He calls me Sandra.
He calls you Sandra. And so when the wife came along, she just thought that, you
She just
know,
thought that
he called you.
that the relationship, because there are, as crazy as it is, there are some kids who do call their parents by their first name. So she just thought it was one of those situations.
Okay, so I am aware of that. And it sounds like it, you know, not only you had to do some work, but it sounds like your sister had to uh release uh release some things. She couldn't really be maybe passive aggressive or attack you or her parents.
Oh, there were attacks.
Okay, so there were attacks.
There were attacks. There
Okay,
were
so
attacks.
how did
Uh,
how did
yeah,
this?
there were times when something would occur and she would make the comment, "That is my son." And she was right. He was her son.
Mhm.
But my comeback to her was, "Yes, you're absolutely correct. He is your son, but you're not providing for him.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I'm going to make the decision. I don't care whether you like it or not. You really, if I wanted to push the issue, don't have a leg to stand on because his parents are dead because he had been legally adopted.
Right.
And if you want to go to court and fight me, you can go to court and fight me. I
Mhm.
don't have a problem with it. And I can guarantee you, hands down, I'll come out the winner. So the choice is yours. How do you want to play this? And so she would back off. But that would come from time to time. It was the same way when my dad died. Um, he left my nephew certain things in his will, but my name was attached to it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so she had told my baby sisters that um, Sandra forced dad to do all the stuff because my dad had lung cancer, which eventually went to his brain. And
Mhm.
so there were things that he wasn't real clear on. But no one but me and my two baby sisters knew that once my dad got the diagnosis of cancer, before it spread anywhere, he went and took care of all of his business with the attorney. And
Okay.
he sat us down once it was completed and told us, "This is what I've done."
Mhm.
Um, and his thing to me was, "You're the oldest. I believe you're married to a good man who's going to provide, for you. I don't have to worry about you. I need you to make sure your sisters are okay." He says, "I know how your oldest sister is, but I
Mhm.
still need you to look out for her."
Mhm.
But she told them that I changed everything. I had all of this stuff done. So when I initially went home to the funeral, I left and I came back to finished taking care of certain things. And so I brought back every piece of paperwork, and she was there. And I told her, I said, first of all, we're going to stop this, you going and meddling with them and trying to get them involved in things that are between you and I.
Mhm.
So here's all the paperwork. You can look at all the dates. As you can see, I say, you'll see all this. I say, when dad was sick, I say, I rarely even saw you when I came into town. I would come in, my husband and I, to give my sisters a break. I said, anytime I called to the house, you were never there. I said, but you're here with your hand stuck out for something. I say, he left what he wanted to leave for everybody. Believe me, if anything is sold, you'll get your portion. I said, but I'm not going to go back and forth with you with this. Here's the paperwork, look at it, or whatever the case may be. If you want me to make copies of it for you, I'll make copies of it for you. But what I'm not going to do is sit here and argue with you about somebody else's money they made and the choices that they made and who they wanted to leave it to.
Mhm. You know what? I see something consistent here. I see that the boundaries were put in place by your father, and he used the legal system to put those boundaries in place. So it wasn't that there wasn't blood in the water. It was it
He
was
knew.
just
He knew.
yes. He knew your father used wisdom ahead of time.
Yeah. And it was that during that time that I realized I'm going to have to set boundaries with my kids. And I think that's the thing. We don't have boundaries established when our children are younger. And then when they're adults, all of a sudden, we want to start formulating these boundaries, but that's not what they're used to.
You want to know
So it
something?
can become difficult.
Exactly, and it was very difficult. I'm gonna tell you what I like about your dad. It sounds like he loved all of you deeply and equally, but he wasn't in la la land about the character of
Yeah.
his children.
Yeah.
And for me, I find it frustrating when it is clear the character of a particular person. You might love this person, but when you absolutely ignore their tendencies and the basic character of a person. It's like
Hmm.
they've been showing us for years, but we want to pretend like it's something else. No, it is what they've been
Yeah.
showing us.
We have to accept it as parents that this is the way you are, but we also have to establish boundaries where that may be concerned. You can't overlook it because it's only going to come back down the line later and probably bite you if you don't.
Well, you know what? It doesn't sound like it bites them. It's when the generation ahead does not down boundaries, it bites the next generation because your father could have left you with an absolute mess had he not put up the guardrails.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so I just really applaud your dad. I really applaud your dad on
He
that.
knew
And so,
exactly what he was doing. Yeah.
mhm. And so because he did that, you see what's necessary. That's probably why you have so much wisdom, Sandra.
I've gone through quite a lot in this lifetime, but it's all been worth it because everything I've gone through has been a lesson, and one that I've tried to learn from so that I can better myself, but also better my children. I don't want a cycle, as you spoke of earlier, to repeat itself, continue, because with each generation, we should be getting better. And in a lot of situations, I see us regressing opposed to
Mhm.
moving forward. We're moving backwards.
Absolutely. I love this comment. Loving your children is a given, but that does not mean that you have to be blind to the way they are.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. My oldest daughter, when she was younger, she loves to shop, and that's probably my fault because I love to shop. And it got to a point where she thought everything that I got, she had to have.
Mhm. Mhm.
And we had to have a conversation. We had to have a conversation like, I want you to have the finer things in life. I want you to have those things that I probably wasn't able to have at a certain age or whatever. However, keeping that in mind, let me explain a few things to you. I work, you don't.
Mhm. Mhm.
Two, my money that I make is for our household. It's to, your dad and I work, it's to provide for you guys. Is to save for future things, emergencies. Went through the whole thing with her and all. I say, and if we choose to invest, maybe leave a little something for you guys once we're no longer here.
Mhm.
However, do not be mistaken that is your money because it's not.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
not your money. It's our money to do what we choose to do with it, when we choose to do it, and how we choose to do it. So if there are things that we decide we don't want to get you, yes, we may have the money, but that doesn't mean that we're going to do what you want us to do with it.
Mhm.
So we had to have those deep conversations because, she'd say, well, we got money. No, we don't have any money. Me and your daddy got money. You ain't made no money.
Mhm.
So the money is what, at our pleasure, we desire to give to you and how we desire to give it to you.
Well, I love that, and I hope she learned that lesson. But
Oh, she did.
she did. Well, yes, that was when she was younger. But I do like the fact that you're at a certain age, at a certain point, we have to accept that we are no longer going to be here, right?
Mhm.
And so our children grow into particular personalities, particular characters. Some children may be just spenders, spend money frivolously. Some they might be selfish, okay, and not sure. They might not. They may be supporters of the family, or they may not be supporters of the family. Do you think that as the matriarch of the family, it's your responsibility to notice those nuances and divvy up the legacy, so to speak, in accordance to that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One thing I've learned in this life is you have to know those personalities. You really have to know your children. And you can't be blindsided. You can't overlook certain things because I don't care how much everyone gets together and they're all laughing and it seems like everyone has this wonderful relationship. Death brings about a change in people for some reason. It
Mhm.
just does. And so my husband and I have elected, and the kids know it, we tell them, uh, if I should precede him in my death, everything goes to him, everything.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then he will divide how he sees fit.
Okay.
If he should go before me, I get everything, and then it would be left up to me to divvy how I see fit. However, when both of us are deceased,
Mhm.
everything is laid out as to who will get what, who's to divvy up certain things. Like, for instance, I'm in a sorority. Uh, and so there's a lot of paraphernalia there. My daughters are in the same sorority with me, as well as I have a niece who is like a daughter to me. So I have laid instructions that there are certain items that they have said that they want. It's theirs. But there are certain items that are fair game. It's up to them to divvy it out. But they know that my niece, other than something that's specific that I have designated to her, she's in with them. All three of them know it's written down. All three of them know that it is said that they are to get together and they can hash it out, fight it out. I don't care.
Oh, you gonna let
Don't
them
care.
find it out? Oh
I
my.
don't they because it's paraphernalia, it's sorority stuff.
Mhm.
Now, when it comes down to
Well,
financial.
I just want to highlight real quick for those who are not familiar with sororities and fraternities in this particular community, that would be like grandmama's pearls. So so that is my shock. I'm clutching my imaginary pearls right now, which is you just gonna let them fight it out. Oh my
Well,
goodness.
like I said, I mean, and what they're it's probably like t-shirts or jackets, but like for certain different things, their name is by it.
Okay.
As far as land, um, beneficiaries to insurance policies, retirement plans, 401k investments, all of that, it is specifically broken down the percentage that each one will get of that.
Okay.
But there is a clause. Anyone who starts bickering about what somebody got that they don't think that they should have gotten, and I have 3 kids, that person will forfeit what's in the will that they should get, and it will be divided with the other two.
So I would love what is that clause called?
It's just written in there. We had it added. We had it added because it's like y'all are not gonna bicker over something that you didn't. I'm not taking the chance. Because right now my kids, they have a really, really close relationship. They have their own little chat, they talk all the time. I love it. I love it. But I'm not gonna be blindsided that when my husband and I are both gone and they're left with land, investment, insurance policies, and everything, that greed in some way might not take one or the other. And like I
Yeah.
said, my oldest daughter loves to shop. So
Okay.
I can
Okay.
just I can just see. So my thing is I'm gonna be sort of like my dad. I'm cutting it out. So if the oldest one starts, well, why I only got 20% and you got 30% and you got
Mhm.
35%? We're not having none of that. Anybody who bickers,
Mhm.
anybody who has anything to say, you want to go get an attorney or whatever the case may be, then you're going to forfeit yours and it's going to be divided between the other two. So you won't have anything. So you might as well take what you got, be happy about it, go home and fuss about it to yourself. Because if they decide to take it to court, they'll get your portion. Yeah. Mhm.
Wow. Wow. I have to say I like that clause. I have to say I like that clause. I want to make sure we talk about some best practices when being a hands-on grandparent. Okay, I want to talk about that. You are a grandma, and everything is going swimmingly. You
Love
know,
it.
yes. At the same time, everyone is not afforded the luxury of smooth sailing. They're just
I
not.
don't think there's a such thing as smooth sailing.
Well, you know what? If there are, you know what? You're in a good boat. You are in a good. You have nice water, very few short strokes, not a lot of blood going on. But this is some stuff that people are dealing with. For one, there are grandparents that are being asked to be full time babysitters for the children, for their grandchildren. You know, um, my question to you is: if someone's babysitting a child every day, do you think they should get paid?
Personally, I mean, I would never charge to babysit.
Mm-hmm.
I would never charge to babysit my grandkids. However, I'm how to say this. There are times when situations arise that we as grandparents create for ourselves.
Okay.
So it may be in the beginning that, I have friends who their daughter, had a child. They still live at home with grandma. So they both live there. So whenever daughter wants to go, mom's there, she just goes, and mom's stuck there with the baby. And nothing is said until 6 months, a year down the line, and all of a sudden now it's like, grandmama's thinking, I'm getting
getting a little tired of this because, just because we live together doesn't mean that I should be left here. But you let it go for a year. You
Mhm.
created it. You never set the boundary. So I think a lot of times it's because we don't set the boundaries up front. Um, when I had my child and I was still living at home, my mama didn't even work.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so, yes, I was going to school, but she made it very clear I have a life. It's your baby, not my baby. You have to ask me to keep the baby. So, you know, it was an understanding that, yeah, she would pick my baby up from kindergarten because I would be in school at the time. She needed to be
Mhm.
out. But if I was going out on a date, I had to ask, Mom, would you be able to? And there
Mhm.
were times when she said, No,
No.
I'm tired. No, I'm tired. And I wasn't going to dare just think I could just walk out the house and leave my child there because, yes, she would have taken care of her, but the repercussions I would have gotten when I got back home.
Mhm.
And it was probably the same with me, although, all of my kids, I only have one child who has a baby.
Mhm.
But when they got to the ages of having children, even we had the sex talk and all of that, but my boundaries were set then. They started then, if you should get pregnant as a young lady, um, I'm not your live-in babysitter. Yes, I'm gonna help you take care of the child because you will graduate from high school. But all this going out every weekend, that's not gonna happen because you gotta take care of the baby. I will help you take care of the baby, but you're going to take care of the baby. And that doesn't mean you go out and party and I'm stuck here with your child. It's your responsibility, not mine. But I did want them to know I was going to be a present force there. And with my son, my thing is you don't get off just because you're not the one having the baby physically. You contributed. I told him, I said, the best way I can explain it to you, think of yourself as a divorced dad, because at least every other week you're going and get the baby and you're going to babysit it. And he says, well, I'm a hard sleeper. I'm not going to hear the baby wake up. And so my comment to him was, yeah, you're right about that. I said, but don't worry. The baby starts to cry. I'll get the baby and I'll go warm the bottle up. And he started smiling. And I said, and then I'm going to wake you up and I'm going to give you your baby with the bottle and I'm going to go back to bed.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so he says, are you serious? And my oldest daughter told him, boy, you have no idea. Mama. I, but I'm going to be there for my grandkids. When my son got married, uh, before he got married, the woman that he married already had a small child.
Mhm.
And we got attached to her before they even got it engaged.
Mhm.
There were times she would allow me to go get her. I'd come off the road. I'd call her up, hey, can I go by and pick her up from daycare and keep her for the weekend? And she said, yeah. But that was when I chose to, and she just took it as, oh, his mom's being kind. She's helping me out, blah, blah, blah. But when they got engaged, I called her and I said, we need to have a conversation. And I took her out to lunch and I told her, I said, I just want you to know something. I said, I'm happy for you and my son. Welcome to the family. Talk to her about some things. I'm not going to get involved in y'all issues. Don't try to drag me in, those type
Mhm.
things. I said, but let's have a conversation about grandkids. I said, I'm a bonus.
Okay.
I'm a bonus. I'm not the one that has to necessarily lay the law down. Yes, there will be rules when they come to my house. I say, you know that. I will expect them to respect me as their grandmother. And I'm going to expect you guys to provide for my grandkids the way that you've been provided for. And I said, I'm not going to get involved. I'll give my opinion, do with it what you will. But let me make a promise to you. If I don't think you're taking care of my grandkids, if I don't think you're providing for them well, and I don't think that they're getting what they need, I have no problem in taking you to court and getting my grandkids.
Oh my goodness.
But I'm not going to get involved in how you raise them as long as I know you have their best interest at heart. And she looked at me, she says, Kenneth said that you were to the point. She says, he didn't lie. I says, no, he did not.
Well, you know
And
what?
we've had a really good relationship. They'll call and they'll ask me for advice. But I know as adults, they're going to do what they want to do. I just told them, I just need to make sure that my grandkids are taken care of and provided for. You won't have a problem with me. None at all. And we hadn't had a problem.
Well, you know, I like that. At the same time, that threat, that threat,
Oh, no,
you
no,
know,
no, 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 no. It's not a threat.
it's a
Not a
promise.
threat. It's a
It's
promise.
it's a promise. Okay,
It's a promise.
okay.
Because like I
Right.
told them, as long as y'all are doing, because I don't tell them how to raise their kids. There's sometimes, they'll call me and they say the kids did this and we punished them this way. And I'll go, I don't know if I would have did that, but if y'all think that that would have worked, and they said, well, what would you have done? And I would tell them like, oh, I don't think that's gonna work. I said, well, you're there with them every day. I'm not there with them every day. You know, there are times when I say, I'm gonna buy them this. And they may tell me, no, don't get them that. And then my comment will be, if it's something I think they're just overreacting about, it's like, you don't tell me how to spend my money. They're my grandbabies. Expect it in the mail. And then there are other times when they'll say, Mom, Dad, don't get that. Why? Why don't you want us to get us? What's the problem? And when they come back and tell us, and we sit there, we go, oh, okay, we see it from your point of view. We won't do it. So it's the way we talk. They know how we are, we know how they are, but it's the boundaries that set. And I've told them, I'm not your live-in babysitter. I'm not a live-in babysitter. I have a life. All y'all are grown. I done raised y'all. What I do for the grandkids, like I said, I'm a bonus. And you have kids that will say, oh, these grandkids got some new parents because they not the parents we had. No, because I had to make sure, my husband and I had to make sure that you were disciplined, you had manners, you did certain things. That's your responsibility.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
can enjoy them now. I'm
Mhm.
your bonus because when you're looked at as the bad guy, I come to me and granddad.
You know what?
But y'all still can get the info. You just can't let them know you got the info from us because then they're not gonna want to come and tell us.
So you guys, you're working as a team. You're working as a
Mhm.
team. I love
Yeah,
it. I
but
do.
you've got to set those boundaries early.
I want to deal with more challenging situations because before you said you would never charge to keep your grandkids. I think that's fair. But let me run this by you because I do know for a fact that people are dealing with this. You
Yeah,
know, some grandparents are on uh, a limited income, okay, and um, they would like to keep their grandchildren. Maybe they're disabled or what have you, but they have a very limited income and they have limited time. Okay,
resources. Yeah,
resources, um, and if they were not tasked with keeping your child, they may very well choose to keep uh, Lindsay Lou's child down the street for a fee. They only have so much time, they only have so much energy. So you're actually disturbing an opportunity. They're sacrificing, they're making a sacrifice to keep your child. Do
now my
you?
thing is every situation is different. Like I said, I wouldn't.
Mhm.
Um,
You want to know because
but I think
you're
that
not in that
if
situation. You know what? You're such a talented woman. You're not in a situation of scarcity. But my thought process is some people, particularly grandparents who are on a limited income, they
yeah,
might be in a
absolutely.
situation of scarcity.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of times in those situations, and I know of them where um, you just drop the child off. You don't drop any food off. You may drop them off with, I'm serious, you may drop them off, and if they're in diapers, here's two diapers. Can you pick up some more? You know, uh, in those instances, you need to pay them because now they're having, like you said, they're on a fixed income. They're now having to use their limited resources not only to provide for themselves, but to provide for your child, you know. And I think, a way of paying them is not, I think a lot of times we think that it always has, I got to put the money in your hand. But how about you tell mama, I'm going to pay your light bill?
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, Bring mama some groceries. Take mama grocery shopping,
Mhm.
and then pick up some things. You should, your, ch- your child should not be a burden on your mother,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know. Send them over there with lunches, things to drink, and not just for them, but for mama too.
Mhm.
Like I can remember my husband now when we were dating, and there was this great barbecue place that my mom loved. And so anytime we went out when we were dating, and he says, "Your mom's gonna keep it." Yeah, she says she's available, she can keep her. He would go and get my mom this barbecue plate. And he would pick up my dad something too.
Mhm.
And he was like, I can at least bring y'all dinners. Y'all ain't gotta worry about cooking or whatever. And that was it. When we were engaged and we were my child and I was staying there, and it wasn't his child, but he would treat her as his. Um, he wouldn't just pay his portion of the phone bill. He paid the whole phone bill.
Mhm.
I would do grocery shopping, and I wouldn't just grocery shop for just me and my child. I grocery shop for the household when I went.
Mhm.
Because my thing is, if my mom is watching my kid, and if she had to run off, my dad was there. If they're watching my child, I need to also take care of them so that they're able. I don't need them to be worrying about stuff. I need them to be able to take care of my child.
Mhm.
Um, but like I say, it goes back to those boundaries. What have you seen and what have you allowed? Because a lot of times we allow things to go on for so long before we address them. Now it's hard for that person to readapt, or we need to establish them, as soon as we see that it's becoming an issue. Um, when we start keeping our grandkids because we're asked by our daughters or our sons, um, what is that arrangement like? Did
Mhm.
we talk about money? Did we talk about you just can't leave them here all times of day? Because I've seen it where baby gets dropped off at 7 because you got to be to work at 8. You get off at 5, but don't nobody see you till 9, 10 o'clock at night. So what you been doing all of that time? And you ain't called,
And I
and
think
you won't answer your phone.
and listen, can I say talk about it? Talk about it, because that is such reality with these parents. They drop off you drop wait a minute, better yet, you drop them off one day, nobody sees you until days and days after. You MIA, and you may or may not call, and you may say you coming back, but you don't, or you come back, just you call just to say, well, oh my God, I was just working so hard, I'm so tired, and the baby is still left there. um I think that a lot of grandparents don't want to establish those boundaries, just because the flip side is, once that child once that you establish those boundaries, maybe that they won't let the baby come over as much, because it is
I
no
think it
doubt
has
that
to have.
grandma it loves the baby. Grandmama
I
loves
think. I mean, I think that you have to start it up front. I mean, to me, it's no different if this. When you ask me to keep your child, mom, if maybe you're not making enough money, you feel as though it's going to compromise your living situation if you put them in childcare, because childcare can be pretty
it
expensive.
is very expensive.
So, as a grandmother, I think we have to say, okay, we have to have an arrangement here.
Hmm.
What time are you asking me to keep this child? You
Hmm.
know, what are you going to do? Are you going to be providing, their breakfast? Are you going to feed them before they get here?
Hmm.
What are we going to do about lunch? What time should I expect you in the evening? We have to establish these things, because just because you're not taking them to a physical site as a daycare you're looking at me as a daycare. So
Mhm.
we need to come up with some boundary because if I can't do certain things, I need to let you know up front. You know, I may need to tell you, hey, I'm gonna need you to pack him a lunch, and you're gonna need to be here by this time to pick him up.
So
And
how do how do we reestablish those boundaries or reset the clock when we've already gone down the wrong road? Because I have to tell you, verbalizing these things just in conversation with us is smooth sailing, right? But I can assure you that it is not smooth sailing in reality, and it does not generally stand on um, the foundation of appreciation and love. It's more like teeter tottering on the bound on the foundation of obligation and threat. Like if you can't keep the kids when I want you to, then you ain't gonna see these kids because you always telling me these my kids.
well, I mean, y- it's hard. Like I said, it's hard. It's nothing that's smooth sailing, but you need to sit them down and have this conversation with them. Hey, we need to talk. We need to talk about this child care thing.
Mm-hmm.
And boundaries, it's not just establishing them, it's establishing them, it's implementing them, and it's enforcing them. And you need to let them know, this doesn't change how I feel about my grandchild. I still want to see them, but I have a life just like you are wanting me to keep them so that you can go and work and you can do
Mm-hmm.
all of these
Mm-hmm.
different things. Even though I don't work, and I'm able to keep them, and I don't mind keeping them because I love them. They're mine. I enjoy spending the time with them. I still have things that I want to do. There's still places I want to go, and you're prohibiting me. You've got to work with
Mm.
me if you want me to continue to keep these kids because remember, it benefits you as well.
Okay. Okay.
Because where else are you going to go to have somebody to keep these kids and you're not paying them anything? You're not sending them over there with diapers. You don't have lunch prepared for them.
Okay.
This is a win-win for you. We need to establish these are going to have to be some ground rules, and you may have to compromise a little bit, to try to keep from losing, I guess you could say, your grandparent privileges, but you can't let them continue to run all over you.
Okay.
There has to be a sit down conversation. And then sometimes you may just have to run that risk.
So it is, and it is running a risk. I got one more question that I want to get out there because sometimes you are the fly on the wall, or or you're a person with a family stake, but not really a family leg to stand on, so to speak. So I'm gonna put you're the aunt, okay? You are the aunt, and you clearly see that one of your sisters are taking advantage of your mom and dad. They're they're dropping the kid off early, not picking them up to 9 or 10 o'clock, or even if they do picking up, pick them up. They're not providing gas money. They're not necessarily they and they really don't seem to be appreciative. But the way your parents are, they are just thankful just to be in the baby's life, and they're so happy about it. They're never going to say anything. They're never, ever going to say anything. Um, where do you interject? Do you not interject?
I'm that sister that will.
How does that work? Tell me about that.
First of all, I'm going to go to my parents and I'm going to ask them why are y'all allowing that to happen? And especially more so if I'm that sister that's got to fill in for the parent as far as finances help them because they're Well, I had to get this for Johnny,
Well,
you
I'm
know.
glad you brought that up because that's happening too. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm glad you brought that up. You know what? I
I
wasn't
got to
even
get
going to
this for
throw that
Johnny.
line.
Yeah, I had to get this for Johnny, and now we ain't got this for whatever. So
If this
now
is not
I'm coming
reality,
over. Yeah,
this is real.
it is. It
If
really
this
is.
that's real life, I wasn't, you know what? I wasn't even going to throw that fly or ointment, but that is so reality. I am talking to the right woman, family. I am talking to the right woman on this scenario. But the problem really does lie with mom and dad because I have to tell you, in that scenario, mom and dad, parents, they refuse to draw that boundary. Do you think you have a right as sister to say something?
Yes, I do. Because that's my mama and daddy too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the things that you're doing is you're stressing them out because now they got to come to the other child to try to get some help because you're pulling from their resources. And the
Mm-hmm.
other child probably saying, Mama, Daddy, y'all ever need anything, let me know. I don't want y'all to, be without. But you got this one over here who probably knows, well, they'll give it to me because if they need it, they'll just go get it from her.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're bringing me into the equation, and here I come full steam ahead.
Uh,
Because first, I'm going to approach Mama and Daddy.
mhm.
Y'all going to have to stop this because I'm helping y'all and y'all giving the money to her. Y'all probably done gave her some of my money.
Well, look, I'm just going to tell you right now, they not going to stop. It's never going to stop. They
And no, but I'm going to be
capitulated.
respectful. No, I'm gonna be respectful though. And I'm gonna go to them first and have a conversation.
Okay.
If that don't work, I'm going to sister. And I'm gonna try my best to reason with her. But then it may have to come some harsh things. I may have to be sitting at mama house at the door. Y'all not coming up in here today.
Ah!
It's not happening. It's not happening. You got any diapers? You got some food? You got some money for the household? Because right now, I'm taking care of the household. And the household expenses ain't got no money for you and your child. So I'm going to
Mhm,
need you to do something. You know, I may
mhm.
have to take some drastic reaction. You've got to do something because you've got to make this person see, and they may never see. But you've
Mm,
got to draw
mm,
the line.
mm.
And mom and daddy might be mad with me because
Yeah.
then I might have to say, Mama, Daddy, I truly love you. But as long as you allow this to continue, I'm not gonna be able to help you. And that's gonna hurt me, but I it's gotta be some boundaries and somebody's gotta make a move. So me loving my parents the way I do, and I love my sister, but I can't stay in the way you're doing that. I'm gonna have to make some harsh decisions because I gotta get somebody to budge. I gotta get sister to come to realization. I gotta get mama and daddy to act right. It almost makes you think of what is that movie that Samuel L. Jackson played in, uh, where I think him and Wesley Snipes were brothers. Samuel L. Jackson played the drug addicted brother, and he would go over to his parents' house. Mama wouldn't stop. The daddy was a preacher or whatever, and the daddy didn't want him there. He had stole the TV, he had stole everything. And here goes Wesley Snipes always providing, always, replacing stuff. And then they had this power clash, you know, until, mama never did get it, but daddy did. Somebody got to get it and lay down the law.
Well,
And
then,
so if I've got to be that person, because I'm going to be like this, I'm going to have to get some tough skin. And I don't care whether none of y'all don't like me. My husband, my husband tells me all the time, he says, you just tell your, because I'll call my sister and we'll be talking and she'll say something. I'll be like, what are you doing? That is some foolishness. No, we're not doing that. No.
mm. So you're
I'm
calling
that.
everybody to the table, but let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, and I'm going to bring Dr. Nicole in on this as well. I want to know, what if it said to you is you are trying to control things that are outside of you? Because what you could do, what's an option, what is in your full control is if you just stop giving mama the money.
That's what I said. Somebody's got to make a move. Either I'm going to stop giving mom and daddy money.
Up, so that's an option. That's an option.
That's an option. I'm going to stop giving them money because somebody got to budge here. Either I've got to get the reality into mom and dad, or I've got to get the reality into sister. And if I'm not going to get it into sister, then as much as it breaks my heart, I'm going to have to, hey, no, I ain't got it. Because you
Tough
shouldn't have
love.
gave it to her. You knew you didn't have it, but you were dependent on me to give it to you. I'm all out. I'm tapped out.
Tough love, tough love, tough love. You are stopping this threesome. I see I have Dr. 𝑩𝒂𝒂𝒏 with us today. Welcome, welcome, welcome. She
Hello.
she is an author,
Hi.
she is a first lady, and she is truly a wise, wise woman. I'm getting her, guys, fresh off of her first lady them today. How are you doing?
Oh,
Good. I was rushing. I said, okay. The pastor got through preaching, and I said, oh, we got done a little early. I can get home and jump on.
I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful. I know you've been backstage listening a little bit. We've had, look, I'm just gonna call her the expert grandma.
I
I
don't know
love
about
it.
all of that.
But she is really helping us navigate some of these matriarch waters, because it is
Mm,
tough. It is tough. And I, I would say being a matriarch is just very different than being a patriarch, because you get into the weeds as a woman. You get into the weeds
mhm.
and the emotions and the expectations are simply different. And Sandra has really been helping us navigate the things that are so often unsaid. The hard stuff. So break in on us, Dr. Nicole. What are your thoughts?
Ooh, I mean, I just jumped in here, so I didn't
Okay, so
hear
let
all.
me give you the scenario. The
Sorry.
scena- Let me give you the scenario here, and then we'll come back with after I get her opinion on this, we'll come back with more with Dr. Nicole. But basically, this is the scenario. We are trying to figure out, under what circumstances is it proper for a auntie to jump in if parents are being taken advantage of? And this is the scenario. There's limited resources in the household. um, Sister is not necessarily providing when she is dropping off the kids, and she's dropping off the kids early, picking them up late, or picking them up the next day. Auntie is being the supplemental force for the household, meaning she picking up when the gas bill is a little late or a little behind, or just providing for financially. Meanwhile, other sister is sucking up resources. Okay, so
Mhm.
though yes, she's never given direct money directly to sister, but it's coming through that password through, because you taking resources out the
Mhm.
household, and
Absolutely.
this other sister is putting resources in the household. How do you navigate that?
Oh, wow. I mean, I did hear some of what Sandra said, and I do agree. I liked a lot of her approach with one being direct with it. Because if you're the person that's putting in the pot most of the time, you
Mm,
do have a right to say something because it's your resources that are being diminished. So every
mhm,
time you give, someone's taken away, right?
mhm,
And you're like, prime example, you're buying all the toiletries, toilet paper, paper towels, but then when you go to use the toilet paper, there's nothing there because your sister and everyone else has been taking, but they haven't been replenishing and putting back in. In
mhm,
order for you to be able to withdraw, you got to make an input, right? You got to make a deposit in order for you to be able to withdraw something.
mhm,
And so the aunt, which is also the daughter, right, of the parents that's living in the house, definitely does have a right to be able to speak up about what she's seeing as being some of the challenges and what's going on that's not being equitable, right? All the resources are not being spread across. So definitely setting that bound. And I heard you all mention boundaries, right? Setting those boundaries and those guidelines of this is what needs to happen, right? This is what needs to occur. And it's not about you being negative or being rude or being that, right? We can say things in love, but you still say them. Right, that's the challenge. Is we often may think that I can't say anything because that means I'm not being loving. That means I'm not being a kind sister or a kind mom or a kind auntie. No. You are being kind by setting healthy boundaries and setting those limits, right? Letting them know what's okay and what's not. Because if you don't say anything, but you start to suffer in silence and you get irritated, you get irked, and it builds, and then you explode over one little thing because you never told your sister that this was the problem. If you've never said anything and told her that it's a problem, then you can't hold her responsible for continuing to do the behavior that you never told her you had it, that you didn't like, and that was inappropriate.
Wow, I like it. I'm going to give Sandra a final word, and then we'll be back with Dr. Nicole. Sandra, what's your final word?
My thing is just like I said, start it out right. Establish how things are going to go, what's needed. Set those healthy boundaries, implement them, and then have those repercussions. Those, you've got to enforce those boundaries. And if you start it out right, it's going to go a lot smoother. I'm not going to say it's going to completely be smooth sailing, but it will go a lot smoother because the expectation has been set. And the consequences, if those expectations are not met, have also been established. So you already know when it happens, what's going to happen. You already knew what was going to happen. So my thing is, you just need to set those boundaries. Have that, what I say, that sit down, come to Jesus meeting, and say, hey, what are you expecting of me? This is what I can give, and this is what I expect, and then move forward. It's establishing, implementing, and enforcing them boundaries.
Establishing, implementing, and enforcing those boundaries. All right, Sandra, I think that we're going to have you come back, and we're going to break down some more scenarios another day, because learning how to be a good matriarch will really help set your family in the right direction.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Family, we will be back in just about 5 minutes. We're taking this quick commercial break. Tune in.
It gets easier.
Huh?
Every day it gets a little easier.
Yeah?
But you gotta do it every day. That's the hard part. But it does get easier.
Okay.
Some days I got nothing, got a lot to say. Some days I got nothing, yeah, I got a lot to say. But some days I got nothing, yeah. Never stuck in the past tense, barbed wire hurdles, I passed them. Shiesty cats, we outlast them. Mike said, never let them grind you down. If you shine for now, then you could rise to the crown. But I don't need that hat, just love and light in the weed pack. I've seen my family relapse, fall to the ground with knees cracked. They rise again like suns with a vengeance. My lungs, they get replenished when the hope is reinvented. I've been venting to my friends about death and whatever is next. I get a lot of answers, but it doesn't change the quest. I'm strange at best, sort of hurt at worst, but the wound doesn't measure the worth. I watch rain fall and burst, and then the sky turns purple. Verbally discovering my virtue, I sing past my curfew and chew up the souls of whoever tries to hurt you. Yeah, I got a lot to say, some days I got nothing. Got a lot to say, some days I got nothing. Yeah, I got a lot to say, but some days I got nothing.
You just help. When you understand and know your value, you know there is a level of help that you only will get when you call me wife and I call you husband. Period. There are levels to help, and that level of help That only comes when I'm your wife. We're building something, not bonding something. Number 2, parasites. Your parasitic people, they live off of you. Their survival is off of draining you. I want you to actually think of a parasite. Think of a leech. They attach themselves to host. You give me life. This is a reason why a lot of exes keep coming back, because you helped me be sustained. I lived off of you. And when you get the understanding and wisdom on when somebody is parasitic and you establish boundaries or even separate yourself from a relationship, don't feel bad. Never feel bad for severing a relationship when it was God who handed you the scissors. And you don't have to get them back. Resist vengeance. Because if we be honest, if you were to give them a taste of their medicine, oh, they would swear that you poisoned them. This type of relationship, they will be careless while you're stressed out.
I know you're not watching this by coincidence. These are 3 messages from God's heart, and I pray that your heart be open to receive it. And I want you to wait to hear all 3 so that you can come in agreement by saying amen in the comments. Number 1, moving on will hurt at first, but going back won't heal you. Keep your gaze on me and allow my love to show you what true healing looks like. Number 2, I know you feel like you can't go anymore, and giving up is right around the corner for you. But listen to me, this is where your strength grows. Soon you will look back and thank yourself for not giving up. Number 3, you were not born in vain. There is purpose all over your DNA, and it's time you get on the journey to discover it. But don't get too hasty, because enjoying the process is part of the journey.
I give your energy permission to affect me. Now the question becomes, is your energy affecting me or infecting me? What I want you to know is, we don't choose people, we choose energy. So when I choose to be around you, I give your energy permission to affect me. Now the question becomes, is your energy affecting me or infecting me?
Well, thank you for giving our energy permission to affect you. And I pray that we are affecting you in an extremely positive manner. This is the place where awesome humans hang out. And I'm so glad that I am getting the opportunity to spend time with you. So, welcome to the stage, Dr. Nicole, wellness expert, first lady, author, and awesome human. Hello.
Hello, hello, hello. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. The other day when we connected and we kind of laid a platform for what we were going to discuss today, I really gave it some more thought. And what has been brushing up against me between the through line for everybody is insecurity. Insecurity is at the root of so much dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
So, our ability to manage our own insecurities and our ability to navigate through the projection of other people's insecurities.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's people will project their insecurity onto you and drop it in your lap, and then all of a sudden it's your problem, or at least it's yours to manage. It's not your problem, but you're left trying to navigate the effects of those waters. It is the reason why maybe a harsh word is said to you, or a reason why maybe someone has set you up for failure, or giving you said something to you very inappropriate in a public setting. Things of that nature. And it's surprising to me, the oddities that happen. I once was Like, let's say if it's you two, it's you and someone else standing there, and someone says something highly inappropriate to you in a whisper,
Mm.
right? They say something they have no business saying to you in a whisper, but then you're stuck with that. You're stuck with that verbal uh that verbal attack, that somebody
Yeah.
vomited that on you. They knew what they were doing, but now what do
Hmm.
you do with it? Because it was said in a whisper, it was said in quiet, right?
And it depends on the setting, right? So
Mhm.
everything we got to put into context. And so I can give you one response, right? But it really depends on where you're at. But I personally believe in being able to address things as they come.
Mhm.
Don't wait, don't say, well, I'll get back to it, because you may not. And if you don't address things, it's like you're leaving it as if it's okay, right?
Mhm.
And you're co-signing on
Mhm.
whatever may have been said. So depending on, like, if they whispered something to you in your ear that was highly offensive or highly inappropriate, you do have the right to say something, even if it wasn't a whisper, and say, pause it. I'm sorry, I didn't like what you just said, or can you expound more upon what you mean by that, or what you meant by that,
Mhm.
because I found your words to be highly offensive.
Mhm. Mhm.
Even if someone whispers it to you, because it's you don't have to hold on to that, because I know what you were just saying earlier, like, now they said this and now you're stuck with it, but I can say you can give that back. You don't have to
Mhm.
hold on to it. It's like, think of a garbage can and someone's dumping inside of you, right? You don't have to hold that trash that they just threw at you, or dumped into you.
I received that, but I just want to acknowledge where people really are, and they get stuck in fight, flight,
Okay.
freeze, and fawn. Now it's
Okay.
very
Our somatic responses. Mm-hmm.
yes, okay. So if you fight, you know, oh my God, how dare you say that to me? Right. That is a response, and it will probably ward off future attacks. Okay.
It can, you're right, it can.
All right. So that is a response. But those other three, if you freeze, I know many
Mm-hmm.
people often do that. I've certainly done that.
Mm-hmm.
And before,
Mm-hmm.
like, what? Huh? What?
Mm-hmm.
You're
Mm-hmm.
tongue tied,
Mm-hmm.
right? All right. Um, if you fly, is you just I just got to, oh my God, I got to get away
You
from
leave.
you. Just leave,
Mm-hmm.
because the only thing I can control is me. I'm going to control my
Yeah.
presence. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm not going to be
Yeah.
around you anymore because something's
Mm-hmm.
wrong with you. Okay. But neither one of those establish a boundary. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Fine. You were then nicer to that person.
Mm-hmm.
None of those responses establish a boundary. As a matter of
Mm-hmm.
fact, they make it worse. So,
Mm-hmm.
out of the four most common responses to that trauma, three of the four are going to make them worse.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, so
And it can. I think I want to go back to something you said. It really just, it's hard just to take a general statement, right, and then say and apply it to most responses, because it really, you can say something, it's your approach, right? It's not necessarily what you say, it's how you say it also. And so you're right that a lot of us can pause, because I've been in that situation where someone says something and you're like, you didn't think about it until later, did they just say what I thought they said? And the person had moved away by that time, by the
yeah,
time they
yeah.
process, right? Because some of us may process a little slower than others, right? And when we process it and then we go, wait a minute, that was highly offensive. You do have an option. You have the option of just saying, okay, brushing it off, like, maybe they didn't mean what they said, because you don't want to have to deal with, right, the consequences of what you may have to go and approach the person or address it or whatever. Or you also have the option to still address it at a later date, right? Depending
So,
on who the person was.
and how do you deal with that? How do you go about that? Because I do think that, as a matter of fact, I connect with so many women that is where they spend a great deal of their time. Something's happened.
Okay.
And I'm not just talking about with men. I'm talking about a girlfriend, a sister, a family member. Someone said something and they did not know how to respond to it in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
They just did not have the
Mm-hmm.
words,
Mm-hmm.
but they fear going back because they don't want to be the troublemaker. They don't want to be
Mm-hmm.
the one who's, bringing up the past. And quite frankly, they would really just rather to keep the peace.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
peace is so attractive, is it not?
It is, but is it a real peace or is it
Mm-hmm,
surface level peace, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Say you're keeping the peace by not saying anything, but you're not in peace, right?
Oh,
Everyone
okay,
else
yeah.
could be okay, but you have this internal turmoil that's going on because you are not saying anything, and that can build resentment up, right? Because it can build this sense of anger because you're always holding your tongue because you want to be liked, or you want to be the
Mm-hmm,
person
mm-hmm,
that is keeping the peace, or
mm-hmm.
that I don't want no one to say anything negative. They're always saying, oh, she's always the one that's highly offended by everything, she's so sensitive, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Those are the words that may be thrown towards you, but you still don't have to hold on to that, because if you're not able to address it in a healthy way, it eats inside of you like a cancer, right? And that in itself can have a lot of internal ramifications, where it can create, where you just have insecurity, low self-esteem, all these other negative things are responses that can create when you're not able to speak up, and you allow other people to write the narrative for you and let other people say, how they think you should be, or how they see you, without you being able to really have your input on it.
Very nice. Now, is that a skill that you teach in your workshops?
I do. I do. I teach because, and I'm going to go back when you said with women, because this is just, it's so sad, but it's how we're socialized and trained and taught as women, right? You keep the peace. We are nurturers, and not saying that we're not, but when we speak up, it's often looked at, frowned upon, like, oh, why is she being aggressive, right? Versus being assertive. Why is she being this way? And so I find that a lot of women have difficulty being able to speak up, to find their voices. And so that is a way of how I help coach women on how to find their voice, how to be appropriate, right, in their responses, how to communicate, how to set those healthy boundaries where they're not feeling guilty. I coach individually on that, but I also have my online wellness academy and a online academy where I have different courses that walk you through step by step if you don't know what to say. I give you different items on how you can say things, right? I give you tangible takeaway items that you can print out documents and actually walk you through, not only with the videos, but things you can have that if you feel stuck, and you can refer back onto that, on how can I say this when I feel stuck, when I have that frozen moment and I'm not able to speak out, but I feel horrible afterwards. And then I have these thoughts in my head, why didn't I say this? I should have said this, or I could have said it this way. And I have it replaying over and over in my head, this regret of me not being able to speak up and say what I wanted to say in the moment. But it does take time and practice if you're not a person who's able to do that naturally.
You know what? You said the key word. It takes practice. It's never
Mhm.
going to be readily accessible to you
Mm-mm.
unless you practice it.
Yes, practice makes perfect. You can't think that you can do something once and then be perfect at it. You just can't.
And then,
Everything that we've done it continuously until we mastered that skill.
right, and then quite honestly, if that's not your natural posture, you're going to have to go back and re-practice it again.
Oh, oh, one of the things that I often teach with clients is you have to learn how to sit in the feeling of discomfort. And I practice that because
Mm.
it's uncomfortable, right? If you're not a person, conflict is not natural, right? For those that people say, well,
I
I'm
don't know.
good
For
with
some
conflict.
people, conflict is natural. Some people like.
Yeah,
Some
I
people
was
like
about to say
fight.
that. I was gonna say that, right? For the majority of people, right? We like to live in a homeostasis of comfort, right? Non-conflictual, but there are those who are just fighters. And I would say there's other things that can be attributed to that, can be trauma responses and all these other things that that's another topic. But it's normally not, if it doesn't feel comfortable for you, if conflict or speaking up, right, asserting yourself feels uncomfortable, you're going to have to practice working on those feelings of discomfort. And it may not ever feel comfortable, and that's okay, but it's still learning how to use that skill of asserting yourself and speaking up, even if it doesn't feel comfortable, but getting to a place where you're able to do it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I speak from my own experience. Conflict is not my natural place. I have to uh, retrain my machine.
Hmm.
I have to go back
Yes.
in. all the time because I would rather just let you go and go on about your business somewhere.
Right, forget it.
Forget it. Leave me alone. I'm not interested. I don't care that
Yes.
much, But what I have learned and what I am constantly reminded, particularly with people that I have to deal with on a regular basis, if I don't help equip them not to run over me, and their natural posture is to run over me, then I am constantly in a state of distress. And yes, and they may or may not want to run over me. Some people just have that steamroller personality. Okay, that's who they are. That's what they do. That's how they exist in the world. They might care about me, but it is not their natural practice to be sensitive to my best interest. Okay. Now, some people are social deviants and they are parasites, and they're going to take advantage of whatever every situation. Either or. Since I am the caretaker of me, and I have to say that to myself. I am the caretaker of me. Then it is my responsibility of educating and drawing that boundary and helping people understand that they do not have free reign over the territory that I'm responsible for, i.e. me.
I love that. No. I love all of what you just said. You are the caretaker of yourself. I am the caretaker of me. And you do have a responsibility to teach people how to treat you. I love that, right? Because if we don't teach them how to treat us, they're going to go all over us. I'll give you an example. When I lived in our other home, we lived on the corner house. And the corner house, we lived at the end of so the cul-de-sac is at the end, but we lived on the opposite end of the cul-de-sac, right? So it was the corner house. And when I was a stay-at-home mom with my youngest, I was going through my master's program. And so I was at home with my youngest one. And I would see this neighbor every time after school. They would walk their two kids. Now, there's a sidewalk in my grass, my yard. I didn't have a fence, right? But there was a sidewalk that was parallel to my grass. And I saw this lady. She would, instead of walking, she would start off in the street. She started on the sidewalk, and then she cut across my lawn. And I said, okay, maybe she doesn't know. Maybe that was the first time she did it. The second time I said, okay, you know what? This is getting ridiculous. I'm gonna wait and see. The third time I went out to my house, and in the front yard, I said, I'm sorry. Can you please make sure not to cut across my lawn when you're coming home? Go on the sidewalk because it's very annoying to me. It seems very rude to cut across my lawn. So, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that. Right. But I had to go out and tell her because it annoyed me. I was waiting for her to see. Maybe she was rushing. And she didn't realize because, and culturally, you don't walk across somebody's lawn. That's just very rude.
No.
Right?
Look, America, get off my lawn. Right? This is America.
Right? You use the sidewalk. So I thought maybe she wasn't aware of the cultural norms of what you do not do. But because she persistently did it, I had to go and tell her, I'm going to need you to stop doing this. And she did. Because I thought if I had to sit out here on my lawn at 2:20, when I know you picking up your kids and walking from the bus, then that's something I'm going to have to do, right? Because I didn't like how it was causing me to have that inner turmoil, like you were saying. And so it was up to me to let her know what was acceptable and okay for me and what was not okay. It wasn't okay walking across my lawn.
Absolutely. So, and in the vein of lawn, I want to share that you might not get a positive reaction because I did not get a positive reaction at all. I had a very similar situation, and it was that the neighbor was allowing their dog to express
come and do their business.
Yes. And the first time I watched to make sure that I was seeing what I was seeing. And so the next time, because it is something that happens every day, I came out, I said, please don't allow your dog to do that. When I tell you this woman screamed at me with vigor, her scream was violent, and then she was telling me that I didn't see what I had saw. Yeah, and then how And then she said, I wouldn't do that. I am your neighbor.
So she tried to gaslight you. So you didn't
Yes,
see
like
you couldn't believe your own eyes.
right, right. And then, so me being me, I just looked at it. I was honestly frozen, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I simply repeated, please don't let your dog relieve
Mm-hmm.
himself in my yard. But I was so taken back with
Mm-hmm.
her indignation. That was so weird to me. You were doing something wrong, but you
Mm-hmm.
were reflecting back to me
Mm-hmm. As if
indignation.
you were the problem. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not even getting, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
That is so uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I have to own that. Those are the kinds of feelings that make people not want to speak up,
Yeah.
you know. And if you I don't know, I'm a person, I really feel people. I
Very empathetic. Mm-hmm. You're
very,
a filler, right?
yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes sometimes I have to, you are not going to believe this, but I'm gonna promise you this is so. I am a introvert.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yes, because it's true. I am a introvert.
Mm.
I recharge alone. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I and this is the reason why. Because I feel everybody's energy. Whatever's coming off of you,
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
feeling it. I'm feeling it. So
Mm-hmm.
I need to be alone so I can cleanse and hear my
Reset.
reset to
Mm-hmm.
heal my own feelings. So it's not that I'm not friendly. I'm very friendly. Very friendly. I
Mm-hmm.
even like people. I love people. I love connecting. I love loving on
Mm-hmm.
people. All of that juicy, gushy stuff, baby. Give me somebody
Yes.
to love on. It's making me happy.
Yes.
Okay. But to sense myself, to hear myself, I
Mm-hmm.
have to be alone because I'm getting so much of that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm, and I think it's one of the things that makes me me. It's one of the things that makes me an extremely good listener. I get that feedback all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
it is because not only am I hearing the words you're saying, I am sensing how you feel. I am sensing how you're
Yeah.
saying this, what you're saying. I am absorbing you fully.
Mm.
Okay.
Ooh, you said a good word. You're
Absorbing.
you're like a
Yeah.
sponge.
Yeah.
And when you absorb, right, fully all of the essence of what someone's giving to you, you got to be able to wring it out. And so you're wringing it
Exactly.
out, right, is going to your quiet place so you can recharge, you can be at a place where, you're able to reset and rejuvenate.
Exactly. Exactly. And so and because I know that about myself, that is how I know for sure that I am a introvert, because I
Okay.
do it is not healthy for me to
Yeah.
constantly be in a position to where I'm absorbing everybody's
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah.
Um
It,
it
it, it's not healthy for anyone. I want to say that it's not healthy for
mhm,
anyone to be at a constant state where you're taking, and you're not doing anything to replenish yourself, right?
mhm,
You're not doing anything so that you can recharge. It's not healthy for anyone because that will place you, right? When you have emotional distress, you can develop some different types of mental illnesses and disorders. And so it's not healthy for anyone for long periods of time to continuously do that without being able to recenter, recharge, and do some things, right? When we say self care, everyone's like, self care is so saturated now. But I always say self rescuing, right? That's the term. It's
mm,
because it's learning how to put the life jacket on yourself first before you put it on someone else. It's doing those things that are going to help you to maintain your own wellness, right? Before you focus on everyone else.
mhm, mhm. So let me ask you about the opposite kind of person, because some people really do get charged up. They get charged up with being connected in a room.
Mm-hmm.
They get charged up being connected in a room. Like that's their I don't know, where I need that quiet to recharge.
They
Another
get
person,
energized. Mm-hmm.
yeah, they get energized. They,
Mm-hmm.
because I But with this kind of person, I noticed that they are not necessarily absorbing. They're
Exuding.
expressing.
Yeah,
They're exuding.
it's rough.
They're
Yeah.
they're pushing it out. Some people are
Yeah.
inputters and some people are outputters. And
Discharging.
they're recharging it. It fuels them. What do you say about that?
I mean, there's just different personality types, right? And so it's recognizing, like, you already know what type of person you are. Have you ever noticed, and this is interesting, typically people who are introverts are friends with extroverts and vice versa, because it's like it's a complementary, they complement
Yeah.
one another. And so if you're in a room with someone that just loves to just give off, right, and you're taking it, you get to determine how much you're going to take in. You don't have to take everything they're throwing at you, kind of a thing, right? So you have to set the limit of what that may look like, but you also don't have to get activated and engaged with it also, because you have other people that are, if you say like those dischargers, always constantly, and they get energized when they're just giving off and they're the life of the party, they're doing this and that and the other. You can determine how much is okay for you, how much you want to be involved and engaged in that. And you can be involved a little bit, somewhat medium, but you can also say, you know what, I don't choose to engage. It's too much right now. Give me a moment. Let me be over here. I just need to take a moment to myself, right? And just be over in this corner. And if I need to recharge and reset, that's what I need to do before you can go back and engage. But you don't have to let that other person's energy throw you off, right? It's kind of like, I like to tell people, when you see someone that's highly anxious, anxiety, right, is very catchy. You can walk in a room, like someone comes in like anxious, they're all nervous and just like this, whatever. It's you can start to take on those feelings also, that energy level that comes in. You can walk into a room and you can just be happy and feeling great, and then all of a sudden you start feeling down because the energy level that's in the room may be more oppressive, depressive, that kind of thing. So when someone comes and they're very anxious and they're nervous, I literally have it, Paul, hold on a second, because I don't want to become reactive myself. And then I'm anxious and I'm taking on some of those anxious vibes that they have. And I tell them, wait, hold on a second. Let's take a pause. Let's take a breath for a second and help them to recenter, get to the place where they can regulate their emotions themselves, so that they're so highly anxious, because it's catchy. So if you're going to a place where you're saying, you take in a lot, but someone else may throw out a lot, you get to determine how much you're going to catch. You can dive, dodge it, you duck down, right, kind of a thing. You don't have to take it all on.
It's funny that you mention that. It is funny that you mention it, because I notice that people often throw energy in how to dodge certain, I don't know, catching people's vibes. Okay. Now, I hope you can follow me with this.
Okay.
I like to receive text because I don't like people to interrupt my energy flow. And yes, because I know for a fact some people's energy is off. They coming with a bag of foolishness. Y'all coming with a bag of foolishness. Because I already understand your vibe. I already understand your vibe.
Picked up on it.
Picked up on it, and we may be going through a difficult situation or whatever. And when I say difficult, sometimes you're trying to solve family problems, or sometimes there's friendship, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Just text me your thoughts, because I don't want you to throw your shade on me. I don't want you to throw your frustration on me. I don't want to catch your sadness, and I don't want to catch your attitude. I don't want none of what you got. Text me, please.
I'm laughing because I am the opposite, right? And I will text people like here and there certain things, but I have people who want to text me a whole monologue. I'm like, call me. I don't have time to be sitting down reading your whole text kind of thing. So call me.
I got you on both sides. I got you on. Call is good. Call is good, especially when you're delivering joyful news. When you are delivering news that is sensitive, sensitive news, and I need you to hear my voice. I need you to since I can't hug you, I want to give this to you, which is with as much care as possible. Okay. Extract that part, this is what I'm talking about is we're you have something, you don't like it, I don't like it, but we got to deal with it anyway. Or the person in your life that's constantly coming with the attitude,
Okay.
the shade, the side check, that they don't like this, they don't like that, whatever they come in with, text me. Don't deliver
I
me
get it.
shade.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't deliver me your shade. Don't give me your energy. Don't give me your side comment. Do not give me
Yes.
your disapproval. Do not give it. Leave me.
You know, I'm with you. I am with you because I already know my natural defense mechanism response is avoidance. That's me. And I'm a mental health therapist. I know that about myself. So I'm constantly working against my natural inclination because I don't like drama. I don't want to be a part of it. Ain't nobody got time for that. I like peace.
Oh, I like that. Deliver me the drama via text.
Like it. Deliver me the drama. No, but this is the funny thing. See, and I like the text part because you can act like I'm gonna pick my phone up. You can see, you know how the phone gives you the preview. You be like, oh no, not today, Satan, and I'll put that down. I not today, Satan, and I got the T-shirt and the sweatshirt that says "Not today, Satan." I love this one lady, Black woman, great Christian lady. She has her apparel. I love her. Shamanica. I buy all her stuff in every color. Right? Not today, Satan. You can choose if you want to. If you want to respond to that or not. So yeah, I love that when you say with the text. So because I know my natural defense mechanism is avoidance, I work against that constantly, right? To address things because I'm quick with like, you know what, I don't have time today. And it's funny that God placed me in the role of being a first lady because you deal with a lot of people, right? And my natural response is, I don't want to deal with drama, Lord. He's like, well, I've equipped you with the skills necessary so that you can deal with the things that you need to. But normally I'm like, I text, no, I don't put that down because I'm not today. I can get back to that. Yes, not today. I should have worn my shirt. Not today, Satan. I love it. That is my phrase.
Wait a minute. I only allow Satan to text me.
No.
I'm gonna stand myself in the corner. I'm a mess. So
it makes sense what you're saying when you say, because what a text also does is kind of when I'm coaching people who have difficulties expressing themselves, and I tell them write it out first, right? I tell them you can even write a letter to the individual because if you're writing a letter, they're getting out everything they need to say so that they don't get derailed. Because if you're a person that if you're saying something, you have a goal or something a point you want to make. But then the other person starts to talk, it may derail your thoughts and you get off top, you forget all the things you were going to say, or if you process a little slower. So when you write things out, it gives you the opportunity to just say what you need to say and get it out there.
And then, you know what? Sometimes I want you to see what you're saying to me. I'm being nice to you and you are saying this to me. You are trying to draw me into I am being nice and respectful, and you are doing this. Can you see this?
And that's a good point that you make because sometimes people are not even aware of what they're saying, right? And so by having in the text, you can refer back. I want you to read above two messages above what you just said. Read that and let me know what your thoughts are, kind of thing, because they may not even be aware if they're responding in emotion. Right, of what they're saying until they go back and you refer them back to that text message.
And we hope that it brings about a level of self-awareness. We hope that it does because not everybody has all 10 ACEs, and everybody doesn't have the same ACEs. If you don't know what that means, that's adverse childhood experiences. We love our friends over at ACEs Matter because they are actively going out to the community and helping people understand that. But as they say, hurt people hurt people. Okay. So sometimes A person's insecurities will rub up against your competence and confidence, and then you have a whole swirl of drama.
Mhm.
They need you to be less than.
Yes, I like what I mean. That's not like, but what you just said is a very important statement. Is if they themselves are hurting or they themselves are insecure, right? They
Mhm,
need to find blame and fault in someone else to make themselves feel better. Well, see, I knew
mhm,
she didn't have it
mhm,
all together. Oh, see, I knew that. Oh, look at her, kind of thing. And it makes them feel a little better because they're not feeling good about themselves. So if someone is insecure, they definitely can say things to another person to belittle, make them feel less than, because they're trying to make themselves feel better about their situation, right? Or where they may find themselves. And like you said, they can project that onto other people.
mhm.
And it can be of jealousy too. If someone sees that you're confident and you're speaking with assertiveness and they are lacking that skill themselves, they can definitely want to say some things to kind of tear you down.
Mhm. And you want to know what? I find it so interesting that it can come from the people who um, are closest to you and are
I knew you were
supposed.
gonna say that.
Yes,
Yes,
yes. They
all
are
the time.
supposed to love you. They have been
Yeah,
tasked with the job of loving you, but they're signing up. Oh, oh, let me tear you down. Oh, oh, let me knock you
yeah,
down a peg.
yeah. They
Let
they
me
they they're fighting against you in court. You're like, wait a minute, you're supposed to be on my side, the defense side, not on
tell.
the prosecutor side.
Exactly. You do. They will see you working your hardest, but they will do everything to make sure that you are torn down and ill equipped to function well,
Mm,
but not but they don't want you at the bottom. They
hmm.
just don't want you
Yeah.
above them. They are
Mm.
they're in
Wow.
competition with you. So
Yeah.
just when you're about to give up and just say fine, they say, "Oh, no, 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 here you come.
Mhm, 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 mhm,
I
mhm,
got to keep you in play because I
mhm,
want you in
mhm.
competition. I don't want to give up that competition."
Yeah. And
They're
that's unfortunate because what you said, it can definitely happen. Those that are closest to you, that it can be the ones that unfortunately, try to tear you down. And like you
mhm,
said, they'll try to pull you back up when you're about to give out because it's this unhealthy cycle that they
mhm,
continuously are engaging in, right? And so that's the unfortunate thing. And I will say for me personally, that's why I keep my inner circle small,
mhm,
right? My inner circle is small. I'm very friendly. I'm friendly with a lot of people, but
mhm,
I'm very peculiar in who I consider to be a friend because
mhm.
you have to. And I learned this maybe 15 years ago because I was always the one giving, giving, giving because I'm naturally a giver. I'm naturally a nurturer. I'm an includer. I like to include everyone. We're all this together. Come on in, right?
Right, right,
And the
right.
Lord had to tell me, no, you can't do that because people were taking away my essence, right? People were
Woo!
draining,
Yeah.
right? They were draining me and they weren't replenishing, right? It wasn't a mutually beneficial relationship where it's a give or take, right? It was me always
Mhm,
giving, they were always taking. So about 15 years ago, I made the conscious decision that any relationships that I started to go into, it had to be mutually beneficial. We had to be able to pour into one another. It can't be
mhm,
where you're always calling me for problems, but when I have an issue, you don't even want to hear. You want to talk about your problem, kind of a thing,
mhm,
right? And so it's learning how to get to that place because you will have, if you're a light, I love this. If you're a light, right? Darkness is drawn to that light. So people
mhm.
see that light in you. They're like, oh my gosh, they're coming towards you. Oh, let me see more of what she's talking about. Not because they're on your side, not because they're on Team Coach Love's side, right? They're just drawn to you and they're drawn to you, but they also maybe those people that are also throwing those stones at you at the same time, right? And
Mhm.
so you just have to be mindful who you associate with, who you allow into your inner circle. Because if we look at history, right? A lot of the kings, right? And when we look at the emperors, it was always they were torn down from the inside, right? It's a
Yeah,
small
those.
that destroy the vine, right? We know it's the inner circle because you have let down your guard, you have let down a lot of those boundaries, and you feel comfortable and you're more vulnerable when I'm sitting down and I'm breaking bread with you, right? I don't have all my garbs on, I don't have my shield plate, my brass plate, right? I don't have on all of my armor that I would do and put on when I go out into the world because I think that I should be able to let all that stuff down and be open and vulnerable. And unfortunately, you have some people who are, are more of those Judas that come into that inner circle and may try to tear you down. So you just gotta be mindful of the people that you are allowing in your inner court.
Well, you know
Yeah,
what? You
outer
have to.
out.
Yes. Who do you let in your mind Who do you let in your mind? You can always have someone near, but you can't necessarily let them in your mind, and you can't let them um, in in your heart. So you have to guard your heart. You have to guard your mind, because one of the worst things, I used to believe in someone, and because I was taught to believe in them, you're raised a certain way, so you're taught to believe in certain people. I never ever realized that this person, when they gave me advice, even if it should have been for my benefit, it was advice based off of their own best.
Yeah.
So because our interests were aligned so often, I never noticed it. But then after, I said, it was a shock. Shock. They, all along, they had just been giving me advice that suited their life better. My needs, my needs and what was best for me was never really being taken into account. That was very, very
Be
hard.
devastating.
It was quite devastating, but wish I had learned that lesson sooner. Learned it, learned it. So glad that I learned it. One of my greatest prayers and most frequent prayers is that I do not make the same mistakes over and over again.
Yes.
Yes, that was one of the key things in my life, and it's a prayer answered. Who you take advice from,
Yes,
is so important, because it is good. It is good to be welcoming to many, and those who are not necessarily like you. It is important to remember to love, and to love always. That
yeah.
is that is important. I am not one of those Christians that believe, oh, you shouldn't be seen with somebody who's a stripper, who's drunk or whatever.
Oh,
Love on everybody. That's your JOB. Okay. Remember, Jesus hung out with a tax
girl, you already said I was gonna
okay,
say
and a tax collector was like the bottom of your
like,
shoe.
why are you hanging out with him?
Exactly. That was like the lowest of the lowest. You couldn't get no lower than being an old tax collector. Okay. Now, God, how Jesus said to deal with things is, you tell them once, they don't listen, fine. You tell the offender, bring somebody
As a witness.
alongside, and you tell them, okay, they don't do it, fine. And if they don't, you treat them like a tax collector. Now, most Christians take that to mean that you banish them and you don't like them and you treat them like nothing, but that's not the truth, because Jesus was right alongside the tax collector. As a matter of fact, he went to their house. He brought bread with him. So what he's telling you to do is, if you cannot talk to them and just tell them that you love them with receipt, then show them that you love them with receipt. However, do keep that boundary.
I'm so glad you put that on the end, the caveat,
Yes.
right? I'm like,
yes, do not, right. But see, he was not advised by the tax collector. He did not pick up the tax collector's habits, and he did not let the tax collector lead them, but you do love them. You got to have the right L.
You got the right L. You have to. And I like something that you said is, someone can have good advice, but it may not be good advice for you.
Right.
So you got to be mindful of that advice that you're taking in. I once heard someone come, and it was a preacher. He said this, and it just stuck with me, and I use this. And he said, you have to know God for yourself, because if you don't, everyone else will tell you what he says. So he gave an example. He said he would go and do speaking engagements. And then one time, after he was speaking at a church, he said a lady came up in the congregation. She said, you know what? I was just talking to the Lord, and the Lord told me that you need to come over to my church and do X, Y, and Z, and do the speaker sat back. He said, really? Well, that's strange, because I was just talking to the Lord earlier today. He didn't tell me anything about that. So that just stuck with me, because often within the church, unfortunately, we're not taught how to have healthy boundaries. That's where you can get run over the most, because they're like, well, the Lord said, well, a good Christian would do, you know. And so people love to tell you right, what God has said for you to do, and give you advice that may sound like it's good advice, right? But it may not be for you. So you yourself on a spiritual level have to have your own relationship with God to know what he's telling you to do. But also on just the non-spiritual, right? On a human natural level, you have to be mindful of who, once again, you're led into that inner court, your inner circle, and the advice that you're taking from them. It's like eating it with like a fork, right? People give you advice, whatever you don't need, it just goes right between the little spork things, right? And the part that you need, the meaty part, is the part you hold on to and you can eat. So every time somebody gives you advice, I mean, you got to run with all of what they're giving you, no matter who, even if they are a person of great prestige or high authority, because we're taught to, respect. I'm not saying you can't respect, but to really look at those people in a higher authority in a different kind of a level.
Well, you know what? We are often raised to submit to authority.
Oh yes.
Years.
Oh yes.
Aunts, uncles, mothers, fathers, sisters, mothers.
Mm-hmm.
You submit to them because you believe there is that love relationship there. You believe that of course they want what's best for me. You have that in your mind. So number one, having boundaries is one thing. Being able to enforce them and have the wherewithal to enforce them is another one.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's so key, because often what happens in families is what we call in a clinical term enmeshment, right? It's where we don't have clear guidelines, right? And it's overlapping kind of a thing, right? And so we're not taught in our families how to have healthy boundaries. We're just not. And so everybody, you may say, oh, they're always they're busybody. They're always in everybody's business. They don't never want, right? And so we're not taught how to say no respectfully, right? This isn't something that I feel comfortable. This isn't something I want to do, right? So that can be a challenge. And you're right. It's recognizing if you don't have those boundaries, and then being able to do something to help you learn how to develop boundaries, and then setting them, right? It's like that 3-step, like kind of what you were just saying. And so having that awareness that there is something wrong and you need to make a change, and how you can recognize if there's something wrong is you can feel it. If every time you're calling someone or someone calls you and you get that, you kind of roll your eyes when you see their name, right? Something going on. Now you need to really address and see, what is it about this person that's making me feel this way, right? So recognizing and having that awareness and being able to then go about doing some things. And one of the things I talk about in my Cage No More book is how suppressing your emotions can have you feeling like you're locked up in a cage and you can't do anything about it. But when you learn how to set those healthy boundaries and how to verbalize yourself, you have the key to unlock your joy and happiness. Literally not even realize you have the key all along, because you have the ability to allow people to know this is what's going to be okay and this is what's not going to be okay. But when you set those boundaries, you have to maintain them. You can't just set the line there and then the person crosses and you just push the line back. They cross and you push the line back. That's not setting a boundary, because what you're teaching them is, I can say one thing, but I'm not going to hold you accountable, right, to whatever I just said. And that's
But it's the holding the accountable that is hard, because setting family boundaries, I am telling you, it is hard.
Yes.
And you may not be prepared for the venom.
Yes. that venom is gonna be tough, baby.
Right. I mean, they start attacking. How is it like this?
Yeah, they're swinging. I remember the days. Yes, that's how you head down and you swing the arms.
Exactly. They have the dukes up, and you're adults now, so they're just gonna use a bunch of mean words, and try to use every area of vulnerability or insecurity that they believe they have, and that you have, and then they're gonna twist the story, and they're gonna devalue every contribution that they can possibly get their mindset on to make you feel that you don't deserve to have this boundary.
Oh yeah. Oh, almost definitely. That's going to happen. I tell clients all the time. I tell them, when you start to develop healthy boundaries, those around you are not going to like it. They're not going to be happy, because they're used to you being one way. And when you start saying no more, that's like an example. If you're always the one giving money, so no matter what happens, they know, I can call Nicole, because she's always going to give it. And the minute you say no, what do you mean no? You don't ever say no. Well, oh, now you're just too big and mighty. You can't just help somebody out, right? So they go on the attack to make you feel more on the defensive, right? But it's still a choice, and it is hard. I'm not discounting that it is difficult, and that's why it takes practice. That's why if you're not able to do it, read some books. Read my Cage No More book, right? Where's it at? I don't even know.
There you
right?
go.
You can talk to someone and get a coach, right? That can help you. Go on my online courses. There's someone else's. Go somewhere that someone can assist you in learning how to develop healthy boundaries and be okay with saying no without feeling guilty, because your family is going to make you feel guilty or try to make you feel guilty when you set that healthy boundary. You get to determine what kind of relationship you want to have with your family. When we were kids, we didn't have a say. You're born into the family you're born into. You don't have a say where you're going to sleep. You have a say what you're going to do, right? But when you become an adult, guess what? There's freedom in that, because you get to determine and decide what kind of relationship you want to have with your cousins, with your sisters, with your parents, right? I'm not saying to hate on anyone. You can love. Some people need to be loved from a distance, right? You got to realize if it's so toxic where it is breaking down and corroding you, until you can get to a healthy state where you can set that appropriate line, then you're going to have to withdraw yourself and love from a distance until you can get to that place, because it does you no good if they're tearing you down and it is creating so much emotional distress to where you don't want to get up and go to work. You can't even do your daily function. You can't you can't manage your kids. Your money's all over the place. You got to make sure you're taking care of you, because what did you say? You said it on here. You said, I am the caretaker of me, right? I think that's what you said. I wrote it down somewhere. And so it's you realizing that you have a personal responsibility to yourself. And that means not allowing other people's toxicity to corrode you from the outside in and from the inside out, because then you start to take on more of, well, maybe I am this way. Maybe, maybe I should have done, right? And creates this remorse and regret in you that you don't even have to own. It's not yours to own. Their stuff that they're dumping on you, I would say just dodge it out, right? But until you can get to that place, you're going to have to separate and remove yourself from some people and continue to set that line, and they're not going to like it. But if they love you and they want to be around you, they're going to learn how to adapt to this boundary that you've set. Some people will not. And those are probably the people you don't need to have around you, surrounding you anyway, and having that constant dialogue if they're causing that much turmoil and distress in your life.
Mm-hmm. You know what? Sometimes we just have to realize we might have to break that purple haze of believing that our families are as fond of us as we thought they were.
Oh. I'm sorry. Yes.
That might have to happen. But then also
our Pollyanna glasses, right?
Yeah, our Pollyanna glasses. And then also this idea that your family are going to back up your boundaries. Like you might feel like, well, mama should be backing me up on this, or she should make everybody treat me right, or auntie should back me up on this. She should make everybody treat me, or daddy. No, because they're all used to the way things used to be. So you have this brand new boundary. No, they on the other person's dime. Why can't they call your house after 9:00? Why can't they come over your house anytime they want to? Why can't they use your car? Why can't you give them extra? Why you got it? Why you can't do it?
Yeah.
Why can't you just, whatever your resources are, why can't you just give them freely without Okay, so maybe you have this area where you want to draw a line, and not a dotted line, a full black outline. Do not cross. Don't necessarily expect to be backed up by other people. If you want to be backed up by other people, you might have to get yourself a coach to help you do that. You might want to prepare. If you notice yourself wanting to establish some new guidelines in your life that you yourself to follow. You might have to seek some professional help. There are free ways to go about this. You can get a professional coach, you can get a social worker, a psychiatrist. You can go get some support so that you don't disappoint yourself. And when I say you, I mean me.
I love
I'm
that.
talking to the woman in the mirror.
Yes. No, I love what you're saying, and I want to be clear. When you're setting a healthy boundary, it doesn't mean that those people that are in your family or closest to you are going to accept it, right? But it doesn't mean that you have to back off. If this is something you're saying is pivotal and what's needed, you have to determine what's the end game for you. Like, what's your end goal? What is it you want to see with creating this boundary? And the reason why you're creating this healthy boundary, this guideline kind of a thing, because oftentimes they may not agree with you, right? They may co-sign on with the other person, right? Of like how you were saying, well, how come they can't use yourself and they can't do this, that, and the third? And so it is a part of you realizing,
you know, you can keep them kids, girl.
Right? Right. And so for me, I use humor in all things. You can keep them kids, right? Kind of thing. But it's getting to that place. And one of the therapeutic techniques in DBT, it talks about radical acceptance, right? It is what it is. Your parents are who they are. You have no choice to change. You're not going to change them, but you can still set a guideline of how you interact and what's going to be okay with you. Your sister's going to be your sisters, your friend, whoever, right? They are who they are. But when you can get to that place of it is what it is, because the more you fight against, well, why can't she do this? Why is she always, taking the side of my sister? Why is she always taking the side of my brother? Why are they always, the more you keep questioning and getting upset, it causes more distress in you. But when you can get to the place, it is what it is. So now what do I need to do? Either I can accept that it is what it is and just, I'm quiet and I just don't do. That's a choice. A choice can be you just let them say whatever, if you're okay with that, right? Or another choice can be, it is what it is. I'm not going to try to change them, but I am going to let them know in order to communicate with me and to be in my sphere, this is what's going to have to happen. And so a prime example would be, if someone and you're on the phone with them, and that's right, you can continuously enabling behavior when you do that. If you're on the phone with someone and you tell them, hey, I don't want you dumping your toxicity in me. Like whenever you call them, you're complaining, you're saying all these things. If you get to that point, I'm going to hang up the phone. I'm letting you know in advance. If you call me with all this drama, I'm going to end the call. So let's say the next time they hear, okay. So then they call you the next time, maybe a week and a half. And then they start talking all this drama and say, hey, I don't want to hear this. I'm letting you know. Remember, if you start talking about drama, I'm going to end the call. Keep going on and on. You can say, you know what, I'm sorry. I love you, but I'm going to end the call because I don't want to hear all this drama. And you end the call. And then the next time they do it, you continuously do it. Well, that was wrong. I can't believe you did. I let you know ahead of time. I gave you the disclaimer of what was going to happen, right? What that consequence is going to be if you cross this boundary. But you have to be okay with enforcing whatever it is, that guideline you said it is. And the problem becomes when we're not equipped or we feel ill-equipped to be able to enforce, right, the boundary, that guideline that we set for the individual. And that is where you may need some additional assistance.
Wow. Save the drama for your mama.
That part. I don't even want it. I tell my kids, no, don't say it to me because I don't want it. I'm throwing it back. I catch it, I throw it back. Right?
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. Oh my goodness, Dr. Nicole, it has been a good time with you. Do you have some final words?
I want to say, we all have the right to be happy. We have the right to be the healthiest person in the room and the healthiest around you. You have the right to change your mind. You have the right to make mistakes. You have the right to determine your own priorities. You have the right to not be responsible for the behaviors, actions, or problems of others. That's just one of our personal Bill of Rights. And I talk about that. I keep saying this because my cage no more. I'm trying to help y'all not be caged anymore with those negative emotions that we have. But just recognize that as an individual, as a woman, we often feel this need to be apologetic for feeling the way that we feel, or for making a stance, or for being assertive. And you don't have to apologize for being you. You just don't, right? If you are doing something, you're not intentionally hurting someone else or causing harm, it's okay to simply be able to say, not today. I don't want to take on all of that. I'm not at a place where I feel like I want to deal with X, Y, and Z. So just recognize that your mental health is so important. You can't expect someone else to help you with your mental health, meaning you can't expect someone else to make you a priority. You have to make yourself a priority first, and then you can go and do the work and help others. So just take care of yourself. Make sure that you realize that you're very important, and do those things that are going to help to recharge you, as you were saying, to recharge, rejuvenate, and get you to a place where you're going to have that mental wellness. So my slogan is, you matter too, Mom, so take care of you. That's my slogan. That's what I'm going to leave with that.
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. You know what, family? It has been an excellent time with you. Obviously, I have to have more wisdom from my women, so we'll definitely be doing this again. But as always, we do have to end our program at some point. I can't stay here forever.
Right.
Right. Even though I would love to stay here forever. So Epic Understanding is the place where awesome humans hang out. And I'll simply say, bye-bye for now.
You're winning. You're winning. You're winning.